Yo, how's everybody doing? Yo, this isn't Scottish. This is Irish. How dare you? It's Mike. How's everybody? We good? Listen to this. Oh, there's nothing there. It's the carbonation is low. Fuck. No, it's not. It's bubbling. Weird. Yo, welcome on in. How's it hanging, folks? Banger pod episode, giving the Live Agar episode a run for its money. Yeah, we're gonna promote the shit out of it. The title, much as I love Toasty, not my favorite title of all time. I don't know. I have a thing, chat, with titles where I'm like, I try to come up with something that's like a little spicy, a little fun, you know? I'm not a good delegator. I really am not. This is like a major leadership deficit for me because I don't have a lot of patience. And like, if I look at something and I can't come up with like a reason you did it, and it just, I go from 0 to 100, which is like really bad. I'm working on it. I am working on it. Oh, how is everybody doing today? So today is another Mike was right day. I learned what Pittsburgh style steak is. You people are animals. I mean, as much as I want to defend it, it's not that good. I had a period where I liked blue steak, but I think I truly understood that high quality meat, you want the rendering of the fat while maintaining. So like a medium rare or rare is superior because you want that fat rendering, right? And you want that Maillard reaction, but you don't want it blackened. You don't want it to be carbonized, right? So it's just, I think I ate a lot. Also, like I ate a lot of Korean food. You know, I ate a lot of Korean food, and I'm a baby, so I love it. You know, it's my favorite type of food. The pickling and the sweet meat. You know, the marinated beef. Like, come on. Who doesn't love that? In certain cuts, you have to. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's the other thing. Like, different types of cuts require different types of cooking techniques. You can't. There is no one size fits all. I made baby back ribs. I make some decent baby back ribs. You could ask Vio. I really like to shellac the sauce, right? Chat, let's say it was Saturday or Friday. It was Friday. The days all are the same to me now. I went to some friends to this North Korean restaurant in LA. It's like literally my favorite. Like, honestly, it's my favorite restaurant. The North Korean restaurant is so fucking good. It's a dive, and they have these wings. They have these like sauced chicken wings, and they're spicy, right? But they are the tastiest fucking wings of all time. But every time I bring someone else there, admittedly, it's been it's been non-white people as well. I was gonna say it was only white people, but no, it's not. It's not only white people. It's a lot of different diverse people. They can't handle it. They fucking tap out. Guys, North Koreans live other places than just North Korea. Of course. North Korea is actually doing quite well now. Notice that propaganda about North Korea has quieted down because they're doing quite well. They got out of their international isolation. Every Marxist-Leninist state that gets accepted into the global, like, you know, trade network thrives. Vietnam is Vietnam might actually be the most exciting country in the world right now, as far as like growth and improvement. Vietnam is cooking. I think they're about to build a high-speed rail. Why don't we start talking about that today before we start talking about everything that sucks? I think they announced a new high-speed rail project that's $67 billion. Holy shit. This is so cool. You know, there's 100 million people in Vietnam now. I always have a feeling that Americans don't understand the scale of countries. Vietnam is like absolutely huge, but it's close to the equator. So people don't realize how big it is because it's smaller on Mercator projection maps than it is to the countries in the northern hemisphere. So Vietnam is actually really, really big. I think it's like similar to the west coast of the US, right? Like the Mercator projection actually makes white people delusional. I think we need to get rid of Mercator projection, like ban it, except for very specific navigational. Even then, like it causes white people to just be stupid. Like Africa is absolutely massive. And people don't understand how big Africa is because the Mercator projection makes it a lot smaller than it actually is. All right, let's start off with this.
Vietnam is spending 17% of its entire GDP on one enormous mega belt.
God, they're so fucking cool.
It's honestly pretty hard to imagine any other country on the planet doing that.
Yeah,
But
because
Vietnam is in a pretty good place right now. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, and you can see it. The country is in the midst of a building
Vietnam is literally just copying what China did, and they have a communist state, so they can.
New airports, new mega airports, new stadiums, new roads. And the World Bank forecasts this growth to just keep, well, growing. But it hasn't always been like this.
Communism is like undefeated.
And this remarkable reinvention could be more fragile than anyone would like to admit. This is the $67 billion North-South Railway, a gigantic high-speed line that'll run up the entire spine of the country, all the way from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. It could quite literally be the mega project that will make or break Vietnam.
So funny because like whenever I watch Vietnam documentaries, they keep talking about this city called Saigon, but I can't see it anywhere on the map. You know, isn't that weird, chat? More like Saigon, am I right?
It will make or break Vietnam. HS2, the UK's troubled high-speed rail project, is one of the most expensive.
Guys, did you hear? The Brits are actually so fucking pathetic. It's crazy. They're like California on steroids. It's actually insane how the Western world is actually cooked. We are so coasting off of the greatest generation. It's not even funny. Like we cannot do anything. It's like every Westerner who could do anything, you know, died in 1946. Like we are fucking cooked.
Railways in the world. By some estimates, the cost of constructing it amounts to roughly 2.3 to 3% of the UK's entire.
Yeah, but it's like one straight line, and it's so bad it doesn't even go anywhere.
Annual GDP. While China's Three Gorges Dam, a mega project so enormous it actually slowed the rotation of the Earth, cost around 0.5% of China's GDP. To look closer to home, Indonesia spent roughly...
Eddie Reed? Oh, okay. Yeah. Guys, the markets believe that Trump bombing Iran is a sign that they're going to have an Iran deal. And Micron is like going up an insane spike for Micron. I guess, what do they make? Memory? I think Micron is a memory company, right? Micron is like, what, up $100 today? Nominal. Which is like, wow. I did see that. And Ferrari released a car that looks literally like a Nissan Leaf. This is the ugliest car I've ever seen. Why do they make them like this? I swear to God, it looks like a Nissan Leaf. Not that there's anything wrong with the Nissan Leaf. It's a fine vehicle. Look at that shit. Unironically, oh my God, why did they release the same color? Unironically. Oh my God, I was just shitting. I was just bullshitting. And it's actually worse. Oh, bro, dude. Here's the other thing. I cannot wait for Chinese computer parts. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I heard they were coming out with a new GPU. My next GPU better be Chinese. They're coming out with a new GPU, and I heard it was like $300. It was so good. Oh, I'm so excited for China to be in the computer market. Like, your PCs are going to be $0. It's going to be fucking sweet.
So you have a keyboard, which comes off, and this is now a touch screen. Digital keyboard, and if you want, you can swipe. That's now basically a Windows. I'm going to swipe back, but it gets better because I can open this up, go to the back, take this out like that, put this here, and now I have basically a computer. I mean, this is crazy. Come on, you just put this back, back, and if I want to, just use it like a normal laptop, and we're good to go. Anyways, this is in China. This is Huawei,
I don't know,
and I think it's crazy. What do you guys think?
I don't know about you, Chad, but I'm all about the highest quality. I want that to be crispy. I'm not a tiny little guy. Like I can carry a regular size computer, right? Like I don't need it to fold up all like that. I mean, it's sweet. It's very sci-fi, but I want the crispy looks. I'm looking at the monitor. Like I want that to be nice. Chinese GPU sold out. No! Chinese GPU maker sells out over 30,000 gaming GPUs within 74 hours. I should have bought them all. Fuck. Despite lukewarm benchmarks. Yeah, they're like $300 though, right? The LG 79G100 graphics card fell short of performance expectations, did not compete directly with the latest generation models. The LX7G's 100's remarkable success reflects consumers' appetites for alternatives in a market traditionally dominated by major players like Nvidia and AMD. $485. What does it perform like? Like a GeoForce RTX 4060. Oh, it did more along the lines of a GeoForce RTX 3060. Probably not going to get one of the first cards because, you know, I'm an asshole like that. I want other people to be the guinea pigs. But that's exciting.
0.55% of its GDP on a high-speed.
I should have done the sussy today, but I didn't get VO to set it up last night. God damn it. I'm sorry, chat. This would be a good time to sussy.
Rail line from Jakarta to Bandung. We're telling you this to really put into perspective how enormous 17% is for Vietnam. It's the most
spending 17% of their GDP
expensive
on this
infrastructure project in the country's history,
is crazy.
Period.
But the critical question isn't even whether they can afford it. It's whether they can afford not to.
I talked to Dr. Scott McDonald,
a country realizing they need an infrastructure upgrade because that's the only way for their economy to like improve because it's bottlenecked by like old trash infrastructure. You don't say. And them going, if I were China, I would bear hug Vietnam. I would be like, which I think Xi is kind of trying to do that, but they have like, you know, disputes, obviously some coastal land disputes. You know, every time you have a neighbor, you're going to have a few things that are bothering you, you know, even a cool neighbor.
At RMIT Vietnam, based in Ho Chi Minh City. He explains to me that Vietnam is at a crucial tipping point.
But it's constraining the economic growth in the country by not having a good rail system in place.
The solution? To build an entirely new 1,541 kilometre long new rail line.
So far, we've kind of talked about this project as numbers on a screen, but for you guys to really get a sense of it, we need to show you how big it really is.
Thanks to the Mercator projection, most people have a pretty incorrect idea of the true size of Vietnam. If we overlaid it on the US, it would reach from New York to Miami. Over the UK, it would go from Scotland to Spain. This country is long, and building a rail line up and down it is an enormous task. Just ask the French.
See what I mean?
They spent around 50 years building some 2,600 kilometers of rail throughout Vietnam.
You know, obviously originally built during the French occupation back in the late 1800s, and they've continued the same system since then. They've upgraded from steam engines to diesel engines, but the same 1 meter gauge track has been used since then. Most countries using their rail system as kind of the backbone for transportation. In this country, it's maybe 6% of freight actually moves via the rail because it's so slow. It takes 30 plus, sometimes 35 hours just to get from Ho Chi Minh City up to Hanoi. So the rail system is pretty much used for tourists.
This railway is part of the bottleneck that's choking the country. In many places, it's just a single line, and that line is old and in constant need of repairs and maintenance. Thanks to Vietnam's geography, it's also often extremely difficult to get that maintenance to the right place in time. The new project would add that 1,541 kilometers of high-speed track from Hanoi in the north all the way down to Ho Chi Minh City in the south. Each of these cities, along with Da Nang, are crucial epicenters for the country. 10 million of Vietnam's 100 million people live in Ho Chi Minh. It's the country's largest city and its economic powerhouse. It's also set to grow a lot. Some estimates predict an extra 4 million people moving here in the next few years. Hanoi comes in a close second with more than 8 million people. Right now, a journey between these two cities would take at least 30 hours. The new high-speed rail line would cut that down to just 6. Aside from improving transport between these two hubs, a high-speed line would also connect rural communities. Suddenly, trade, ideas, people could all be shared on a massive scale. It's hard to overstate how big an impact this would have on the economy and the people of this nation.
Currently, there are no renderings of how the train itself will actually look, but I really want to see what it looks like, and I don't want to let something as simple as it not existing yet stop me.
To really understand just how transformative high-speed rail can be, we have to look at where it came from. You probably know it by a different name, Shinkansen, or in English, the bullet train.
The thing about
Japan's
the bullet train is it's fucking old, dude. Like, people talk about this shit like it's some cutting edge technology, and it's like, it's about as cutting edge as a 737. You know what I mean? Like, it's so embarrassing how people think the high-speed train is some sort of advanced technology. It's not. Like, can we, for the love of Christ, get a country that is actually capable of doing anything?
Speed rail story began in the early 1960s, at a moment when the country was rebuilding itself after the destruction of the Second World War. With its economy growing at an unprecedented speed and its cities straining under the pressure of overcrowded rail lines, Japan made a radical decision.
If Vietnam could build a high-speed rail the length of New York to Miami in a much tougher terrain, why can't the U.S. connect New York and Miami with high-speed rail? Well, the answer is America had a president named Ronald Reagan, and since then, both parties, both the Democrat and the Republican Party, have adopted neoliberal ideology. And in neoliberal ideology, they believe that the number one goal of government is to protect and enable markets in everything. And they want to destroy any kind of public provision of goods and services or state ownership of any kind of utility or natural monopoly. And because of that, they have privatized America's infrastructure, especially rail. So, and if you put rail lines in private hands, guess what? They fucking monopolize it. They don't develop it. They don't invest in it. They don't invest in it at all, so it just sits there rotting. And so the United States has lost the ability to actually develop its own fucking country because we worship corporate profit over everything. And corporate profits are focused on squeezing whatever they can for the next quarter.
Instead of upgrading existing tracks, it would build an entirely new railway designed from the ground up for speed. The result was the Shinkansen.
So what I really mean to say is, like, the United States, because of that philosophy, the United States doesn't have state capacity, doesn't have the ability to set up like a state-owned enterprise in high-speed rail, build high-speed rail lines that the state owns, and actually construct anything. It also doesn't have the processes to create large interstate projects anymore because of a variety of issues, most of which having to do with the lack of federal will. There's some other minor issues that block it, but for the most part, it's because they don't, at the executive level, want it to happen. Obama didn't want it to happen. Biden didn't want it to happen. Trump certainly didn't want it to happen. George W. Bush didn't want it to happen. And therefore, it does not happen. Nobody is like saying, hey, I want this project to be completed. And it would probably take 5, 10, 15 years to get something like that done. So you would need, at least 3 presidencies to get substantial progress complete. And that's if you had someone highly competent and highly motivated. So America is really not capable of doing anything like that. And I don't know if it's ever going to get fixed, quite frankly. Like the last time America had a president who wanted to really do a lot of infrastructure, FDR, he was president for 4 terms, or he got elected to 4 terms. And they made that illegal. So there's just no, I don't think America is really, with the government and constitution we have, I don't know that we can, do any better.
Opened in 1964, just in time.
Mike, we need a deep dive into the California high-speed rail and why it's such a clusterfuck because of exactly the reasons I just said. Do you think that Gavin Newsom cares about high-speed rail? It was passed as a referendum, so it's not his high-speed rail, so there's no motivation for him to care. So what he does do is enable it to be a free-for-all to steal. And how do you steal a lot of money from an infrastructure project? If you're making progress on it and actually building it, well, then there's an end. Maybe you make your 5, your 10, your 15% margin, and then you made your nice little profit, and then you're done. Well, then you can't suck any more money out of it. So the best way to do it is consultants who push paper around. Infinite consultants who are pushing paper around. Infinite consultants that are planning and checking the plans and checking the impacts and checking the compliance and lawyers and blah, blah, blah. You spin yourself with paperwork and it costs infinite fucking money and nothing ever gets done. But all of your fail sons and fail nephews get all sorts of high paying jobs doing dick. I think all consultants who make more than $250,000 should be in a giant lottery, and every day we pick a number and then we grab them by the scruff of the neck and we take them out into the middle of a field. And there's a book called The Lottery. You should check it out.
time for the Tokyo Olympics. It was the world's first true high-speed rail line, connecting
for all their
Tokyo and
amazing
Osaka
effort.
and cutting journey times almost in half. But at the time, it was...
Ultimately, America, the problem that America has is we have a lot of people in the chat may even feel attacked. We have the non-profit industrial complex. People hear the word non-profit and they think that means that it's like a good public service organization. And it's not. It just means that the organization is not making profit. But if I get a job, I have a philosophical question for you, chat. Let's imagine that I have a job and I make $400,000 a year at that job. Am I profiting in that job? Let's say my job doesn't actually do anything and it's a pure grift and I'm stealing $400,000 a year from money that was intended for the homeless. And I sit on my ass doing nothing all day. Have I profited from that job? How is my org structured? I get government grants. So the organization, you know, it made no profit at the end of the year. It got $400,000 in government grants and it paid $400,000 in salary to me. I am a nonprofit executive director. That's pretty much every single person who supports abundance. Every single person who votes for centrists. That's pretty much their resume right there. And ultimately, none of that should exist. Every single one of those people should be a government employee at a government agency with concrete public goals, expectations, and they should be directly responsible for outcomes. And if they don't get them, they should be fired. And unfortunately, in the United States, we can't do that. But in China, they do it. In China, they actually care about their bureaucrats having, you know, outcomes. In America, there's no one's ever responsible for anything. And so all that happens is everything is stolen. Everything is a scam.
An enormous financial risk. Costs ballooned, the project faced political opposition, and critics questioned whether passengers would even come. They were wrong. The Shinkansen proved not just to be fast, but reliable, safe, and completely transformative. It reshaped Japan's cities, opened up rural areas, and set the template for every high-speed rail network that followed. So, what made this radical new rail line so fast? Well, first off, by building an entirely new line, they separated freight from passenger trains. Trains which had previously all shared the same track and helped to make the route more congested. On top of that, this new route was designed to be as straight as possible, allowing the trains to go fast. Really fast. At the time, it was around 200 kilometers an hour. The new line used a wider gauge too, 4 feet 8 inches instead of the 3 feet 6 inches you'd find out on the traditional lines. That improved stability at higher speeds, reduced sway, and allowed for more powerful train designs. Over time, these designs steadily became more aerodynamic, with smooth car bodies and rounded noses. The aim was to reduce overall air resistance, and they've only got better at that over time. The original line reportedly covered its construction cost within 7 years because of the incredible demand for tickets. In 1964, 23 million passengers used the bullet train. Today, that number is more than 400 million. The project helped spur Japan's post-war economic miracle, boosting the country to become, at its height, the second largest economy in the world. Regions connected to the Shinkansen lines experienced a 20% increase in productivity, while the now interconnected Tokyo-Osaka mega-region has become one of the largest economic corridors in the world, accounting for 40% of Japan's GDP. Now, China took this concept and did what China does best, scaled it massively. In less than a decade, they built a high-speed rail network larger than any other country. More than 2/3 of the world's high-speed rail now sits in China. It's drastically cut journey times, improved passenger safety, reduced carbon emissions, and facilitated labour mobility. Those from provincial or less developed areas now have access to the country's booming metropolises. Studies also found that tourism increased 20% in provinces connected by high-speed rail and generated 25% more revenue as a direct result. In 2024, China's national railway handled a record 4 billion passenger trips, with daily traffic reaching nearly 21 million people. That's the equivalent of moving 1/3 of the United Kingdom every single day. The railways have acted as a foundation, connecting the country on a truly unprecedented scale and facilitating enormous economic growth as a direct result. You can see then why Vietnam would want to invest in this kind of infrastructure. But building a high-speed railway isn't as simple as building a regular old railway. In order for it to be as effective as possible, the line has to be as straight and flat as possible. This is basic physics. At low speeds, tight curves are fine, but at high speeds, the same curve becomes dangerous or wildly uncomfortable. The faster you go, the more force you feel at every turn. So immediately, we have a problem. This is the ideal line, and this is Vietnam's line. Once you leave
it's not that. That's kind of stupid. I mean, you can make the turn so subtle that even at very high speeds, there would be very little kind of felt. Also, you could tilt the land, so centripetal force will put you like vertical to the line, because it's tilted, right? As long as you're not feeling lateral forces, it feels fine. How do I know this? Fly a plane. There's, you're banking like this, and it doesn't feel like anything most of the time, because again, as you're banking, centripetal force pushes you in your seat like this.
Urban areas of Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi.
Mike knows a lot about being tilted. Yeah, controlling your emotions is a very important skill. It really is. It really is an important skill. Understanding that emotions are simply software that evolution has baked into you, and being able to challenge the unspoken assumption behind an emotion, that makes you a superhuman. Like, if you can address your own emotion and go, I'm feeling angry because I'm assuming X, Y, and Z thing. Is that feeling accurate? That is like, if you can do that, you're in the top 1% of emotional control. And it's pretty cool.
And approach central Vietnam, things get tricky to say the least. The Annamite Mountains run close to the coast and essentially block the path of any future track. Teams will have to bore through it, and that won't be easy. This range is a fractured landscape of limestone mountains and unstable karst geology where tunneling carries a constant risk of collapse.
Vietnam only has roughly about 20% flat land. The rest is all, mountains and valleys and rivers. It's over 2,000 rivers between here and Hanoi that have to be crossed.
Further south, the line has to cross the Mekong Delta, a vast floodplain of soft, waterlogged soils that honestly behave less like solid ground and more like slurry. Extensive ground treatment and continuous maintenance is all going to be required to help keep any high-speed track stable.
It's very similar to what Japan actually faced with their own rail system. They're not exactly flat land either.
Japan is now widely regarded as the global benchmark for tunneling and seismic rail engineering. 10% of the route is going to be tunneled, but 60% of it is going to have to be up on bridges and viaducts. That's far more than you typically see on a standard route, and is part of what makes this project so incredibly expensive.
Also, with flood risks, Vietnam is very prone, especially lately, with climate change and whatnot, to typhoons and landslides and heavy rains and everything else. And they tend to take out bridges and things like this. So the viaduct is one way to kind of raise above that flood risk. Now, electrification is definitely another challenge because the current system is all run by diesel locomotives. So there's no electrification anywhere, which again is more costs involved in that too.
And before all of this, there's one very crucial thing Vietnam needs first: land. This will be the largest...
Yeah, but it's a communist country, so they could just be like, yeah, so everybody, we're going to be building you new apartment. Good news, everybody! You're getting a brand new apartment! Yay! Good news, everybody! Yay! You're getting a brand new apartment! Yay! And maybe it's because I've moved a lot in my life. Maybe it's because I made my first move when I was 2, and I've never really lived anywhere longer than, say, 6 years. But I don't see what the big fucking deal is. Okay, oh no, you have to take apart your IKEA bed and move it to a new place. Grow the fuck up. Now, it's one thing if you're completely taken out of your state and your community and you have to and your support network. But if it's you move up the street, I gotta tell you, I don't see that as some sort of big invasion. As long as you are positioned better than where you started, your conditions improve, then I don't think that kind of minor displacement is even a problem. I think you should be compensated for the inconvenience. You should be positioned in an objectively better state than when you were moved. But other than that, oh well. If everybody in the fucking society is going to be improved and your position is also improved, that's the other point. Like, I do think there should be care to make sure that any displacee is like objectively improved. How long have I been in my current place? I don't know, a year. Somewhere plus or minus a year. That's all you need to know.
Land clearance exercise in the country's history, and it will have to be done through some of Vietnam's most densely populated urban areas, many of which are characterized by informal developments. That's
informal developments
already raised concerns. While the Vietnamese government holds sweeping powers to acquire land for major infrastructure projects, compensation is frequently set below market value, making displacement a politically sensitive issue.
Unlike most countries, all land in Vietnam is formally owned by the state, with individuals and businesses granted land use rights rather than freehold ownership. In theory, that can simplify large-scale acquisition and remove many of the legal obstacles that big rail projects in other countries tend to run into.
I've never had much experience in a country like this where it has the one-party system. And in my mind, I always thought that, hey, the one party is the law, right? They do whatever they want to do. But that's not quite the case. They still have to compensate.
In practice, it shifts the challenge from the courts more directly onto the state. It's going to take an unprecedented level of coordination to relocate communities and keep this project moving. And as we understand it, those landowners have every right to sue the government if they wish. In other words, this whole thing is going to be far from easy.
There's also another pretty key factor in all this. Vietnam has never done anything like this before, so naturally they're going to have to import a lot of talents to get it built.
The country has limited experience, even with modern electrified double-track rail, and has struggled with just metro projects. In fact, those metro projects have kind of been a testing ground for the construction of high-speed rail.
The other skill gap area is operational. Train drivers, maintenance technicians, safety inspectors. But this requires culture of precision and safety that has to be developed from scratch. The Ministry of Transport even warned that without early workforce development plans, Vietnam can have no choice but to depend on foreign experts.
Constructing the line will either way require some kind of foreign investment.
The key question really isn't which country's trains Vietnam is going to buy, but which partner is best going to facilitate that genuine technology transfer. Vietnam doesn't want to just purchase trains. It wants to eventually manufacture and maintain them domestically.
Spending this much on one infrastructure project could crowd out spending on other areas.
Who do you think's the better partner? So Vietnam is probably one of the world's most important up-and-coming countries. In the entire world. It has a Marxist-Leninist state. It's using Dengist reform model, and it's making a huge infrastructure project around high-speed rail. I mean, I wonder who you could possibly use to help you with that.
Like education, healthcare, or even improving the regional rail that's already there.
It's also not clear whether people are actually going to use the new railway. Vietnam has frequent cheap domestic flights, and the flight corridor between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City is one of the busiest in the entire world.
Incredible.
11 million people travel annually. Now, if the high-speed rail can capture even 50% of that market, the government has already stated that they're going to cap the fares at 75% of airline tickets.
This project has been debated for 15 years already, but right now could be the perfect time to pull it off.
Vietnam is on a roll. It's got a good hand and it's playing it well. But with a gamble this big, it really needs to pay off. This video was sponsored by
Vietnam just sentenced one of their billionaires to death. They've got their head on the shoulders. They got their head on their shoulders. They seem like they have managed to escape the repression and sanctions and blockade that they had to weather after they defeated the United States of America in a war, and they got fucking blockaded for decades and attacked. But seems like, they have gotten through that international isolation along with China, and their country is growing like insanely well. Because obviously, can you imagine if the United States of America got sanctioned? Like, imagine nobody was able to trade with the United States. Not Canada, not Mexico, no other country. We had to be completely domestically reliant. Imagine our economy.
Design. Don't forget that if you're a professional interior designer or an architect, you're going to want to check out Round Design for yourself for free. Add the link in the description. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.
All right, chat. I have the funniest story of all time. All right, now that we've had our good news of the day, that Vietnam is spending $67 billion on high-speed rail, and it's going to transform their economy. Domestically, Vietnam is improving, but they're part of the Gaza Peace Council and have got plenty of new relations with Israel. The world blind spot. I mean, my general feeling is that I think a lot of American, like, listen, I'm not defending Vietnam trying to be in part of like some sort of international whitewashing committee for Israel. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But I think one of the worst things about Westerners is it is the Western world that is creating Israel. It is not Vietnam. It's not China. Okay? That is not the case. It is the Western world that is facilitating, arming, and funding Israel. And every time I see a white Western leftist go, well, China isn't declaring war on Israel, Vietnam isn't declaring war on Israel, it smacks to me as some sort of like equivalizing, moralizing bullshit. Our country is the one committing the crimes, right? Vietnam isn't giving $1 to Israel so they could buy bombs, okay? That's just not happening. It is our country that is building the bombs and giving it to Israel. It's fucking weird. All right, 2 hilarious stories, chat. So go ahead and get your Mike Was Rights rolling. Go ahead and get your Mike Was Rights rolling, because I have always said that vote blue no matter who is one way. That if you are a vote blue no matter whoer, you're a fucking dope. Even after his primary win, I'm more convinced than ever that we need a dirty break for the Democratic Party. I mean, all these vote blue no matter who Democratic operatives are going to be working overtime to defeat their own nominee. I've seen it so many times at this point. This was about Zoran, right? As I've said for years, neoliberals do not believe in vote blue no matter who. If you are a progressive who follows that mantra, you are a sucker. They are perfectly willing to withhold a vote from a progressive candidate, even if it means a Republican or sex criminal wins. Okay. Objectively true. Objectively true, right? Well, let's take a gander at the new story that's popping up today. One of the majority Democrats, one of the abundance Democrats, most popular, when I say popular, I don't mean like actually popular. I mean one of the guys they promote the most. I think he was on fucking Pod Save America. Like they had this guy on How Democrats Rebuild. Jake Ockenslosh.
Marshall here. Welcome back.
The realignment. A Democrat who is thinking differently. Ezra Klein with Jake Ockenslosh. Now, when this abundance crap cropped up, I was the first person to say, this is dog shit. This sucks. Fuck these people. This is garbage. I said abundance is neoliberalism. It is republicanism attempting to be smuggled into the Democratic Party. These people are fucking scum and they need to be purged. And I went to war with Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson and all these fucking scum. I borrowed the book from the Los Angeles Library and I forgot to return it. Damn. What a shame. Looks like nobody could read that. Guess what? Not even one email about requesting this book back because they don't care because nobody wants it. Okay? And so, of course, you know, I called this out first. I was obviously correct. I said they were Diet MAGA. I said they were fake. I said they were enemies of the left and they needed to be fought with every ounce of our strength. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a nice little situation.
I find that tattoo and his commentary about it to be personally disqualifying. I hope Maine voters agree with me. I think there would be a mistake for the Democratic Party to think that Graham Plattner's brand of the Democratic Party is what wins us durable majorities throughout this country.
Massachusetts Congress.
So in other words, the presumptive Democratic nominee in a swing state, he's hoping he's not he's defeated. So I guess Susan Collins, who votes with Republicans on every major issue, is a Republican, voted to appoint every single judge that overturned Roe v. Wade. Okay. Jake Auchincloss is more loyal to Zionism than he is to the United States of America. And he is somebody who would rather support, he's more loyal to Republicans who support Israel than he is to Democrats taking power. He must be primaried. He's got to be replaced. Now, from what I understand, there is a number of primary candidates that are in that race that have thus far not received much attention. That's got to change. Who is it? If you guys, we need to look at the Massachusetts. We've got months to go. It's time to get this guy out of office. Throwback when Jake Ock had hot water for old Facebook post about burning the Quran. I'm sorry for a 2010 Facebook post about burning Quran. Wow. Debs coming for the Jew who won't vote for the Nazi. What a POS political party. One of the things that's really funny about the Graham Plattner stuff is you can see how woke, the kind of woke 1.0 is purely bullshit. And why I don't fall for it anymore and I'm not scared of it anymore, right? Like, which is, people try to say that I am a racist or an anti-Semite. Give me a fucking break, right? And they try to call Graham Plattner a Nazi, right? Has Graham Plattner communicated any Nazi ideas? Meanwhile, the actual Nazis are in power with the Republican Party. Stephen Miller is a fucking Nazi. Zionists are a type of fascist. They have the same philosophy, except switch out Aryan for Jew. That is the difference between a Zionist and a Nazi, is which race they think is dominant and is supreme. All right. They're the same philosophy. They have the Lebensraum idea, the living space. They want to displace indigenous populations because they're a lesser race or religion or whatever. That is what Zionism represents. OK, and we have this situation where people will now call me, they'll call Graham Plattner a Nazi. Now, is the tattoo dumb as fuck? Yes. Did I know what it meant? Yes. Did it piss me the fuck off? Yes. Do I believe that an infantryman at 19 doesn't know what a skull and crossbones are? Yes. The idea that this is some sort of deep insight into him as a Nazi and there's no evidence of him being a Nazi at all, but this dumb tattoo that he got in Croatia where there are a lot of Nazis. Something is happening in Maine, and in November we're putting a stop to it. I mean, Susan Collins is just, by the way, a Republican. There is no, like, we don't need to pretend anymore that there's some sort of like fucking magic here. She is, and this is what they don't want to see. This is what they don't want to see, including the useful idiot radlibs who style themselves as too left-wing for Graham Plattner. If you style yourself as too left-wing for Graham Plattner, that you hate him and you want him to lose or whatever the fuck, you are a dope and you are a useful idiot for Zionism. Abso-fucking-lutely useful idiot for Zionism. And there is I have no hesitation in saying that. None whatsoever. And I don't need to posture as more left because I'm actually left-wing. I don't need to posture about it because I actually am. Neera Tanden reposting Yeet. Yeet says he was memeing in his clarification of the Adam Schiff clip. They've done in the stockpiles and found a video of me literally saying, I voted for him. He's my senator. Will he actually defend me? Probably not. I know for a fact he didn't defend his other constituents that were getting tortured in an Israeli prison. F Adam Schiff. 300 likes on the Ock post. I think Hassan honestly should DMCA that guy's account. Like, he should DMCA that guy's account every time he posts a clip. Like, why is he giving that guy credit? Like, don't let that guy post clips of you. Like, what the fuck are you saying? They're out of context. Like, don't let that guy post clips of you. He's not offering fair use. There's no fair use happening. I mean, he supports Ethan Clyde's lawsuits. Susan Collins this morning posted this Memorial Day tweet in which he appeared alongside members of Maine Militia, an armed far-right wing and anti-Semitic paramilitary group, which brags that it doesn't worship blacks and Jews, calling MAGA a Jewish psyop. Come meet the Maine Militia. MAGA has always been nothing but a Jewish Israeli for psyop. Unlock MAGA-tards. NEWN cares about more than just banning from playing girl sports. We don't worship blacks and Jews, so if you want to get active and make an impact, contact NEWN. That sounds like an actual Nazi group. This sounds like an actual Nazi group. I mean, like, this stuff doesn't even make me mad anymore. Like, it really doesn't even make me mad anymore. Like, I gotta be honest with you. Like, I'm beyond getting like surprised or angry about this. And I know that we shouldn't be the not, like, I have a whole rant about don't be the I'm not surprised guy. Like, that's bad. Like, You should continue to be pissed. You should continue to be angry. You should not, like, if you ever find yourself feeling so cynical where you're like, oh yeah, I'm not surprised, and you don't get angry anymore, you're actually becoming stupid. Every single one of these things should piss you off. Every single one of these things should fire you up. But I'm so fired up that this just confirms what I already believe. And here is what we need to be able to do. We need to be able to immediately launch primaries against any centrist Dem that does shit like this. Like Jake Auchincloss, we need to find the best candidate that's primarying him and get him out of office. We need to do a fundraiser immediately for anybody that's in that primary. We need to bring them on Hassan's stream. We need to bring them on my stream. We need to bring them on every fucking place. We need to get them viral. And the moment that our movement can do stuff like that, when we have the ability, when we have the tactical flexibility, and you guys will actually operate in that way, then we'll actually be able to change politics. The problem is we're so sclerotic and we don't have a strong enough response. And they do. That is the advantage that AIPAC has. The advantage that AIPAC has is that their group is highly organized and highly directable. Like, they have a lot of people that have just simply cognitively offloaded their decision making to a group and allow that group's executive leaders to quickly deploy them. We don't have a countervailing force. We don't have the ability to direct resources in a concentrated and an effective way. We just don't. I have to count on virality. I have to count on the fact that you guys also agree someone's interesting. Totally agree. I think part of the problem we're facing at DSA is that our process for endorsing a candidate is not agile. We have to have things planned out for like a year or two in advance. I'm not sure what the solution here is. This is the difference between democracy and executive authority. And this is the problem with democracy and decentralization. Decentralization means diffusion of action. It means greater resilience, but it means less nimbleness, less ability to react. And right now, the problem the left has is we don't have enough ability to see and seize opportunities. We don't have the ability, and unfortunately, and this is something that is like very true in American politics, is that politics comes in waves. In order to maximize our power, we have to be able to grab hold of the wave and gain as much as possible. And then in the period after the wave, we need to have the ruthlessness to consolidate power and create a permanent new, larger starting point. This is what MAGA and the Republicans have successfully done over the last 50 years, is they understand there's a thermostatic effect in politics, right? So blue wave, oh man, so they defend themselves by gerrymandering and appointing people to lifetime appointments and things like that, right? They embed themselves as much as possible. They go to the other side and they inject a bunch of money in the most conservative Democrat candidates, right? So they diffuse the wave by doing all these intelligent tactical decisions that protect their power and gains over the long term, right? And then when a red wave comes in, they use that to reinforce and solidify their power by gerrymandering state legislative seats and you know, repealing regulations on campaign finance, on going after unions. And, you know, they do all these structural changes while they have the power to make sure that the next starting point is much more in their favor. And they've just done that and done that and done that and done that. And now we're at a situation where even with the maximum wave, we're not going back to where we were 30 years ago. We're still significantly to the right of where we were 30 years ago. So we've got to break out of this meta. And like, ultimately, the centrist Democrats don't want to break out of the meta because they don't care about policy. That's the thing about the centrist Democrat. They don't care about policy. They don't have any goals. They just want Democrats to have positions of power so they can make money. So as this country is going more and more to the right, the centrist Democrat doesn't care because it's a relative position. They're only about making money from campaign finance. So for them, moving to the right is immaterial. Who cares? As long as they get paid. Right? Whereas Destiny, you know, like that's what somebody like Destiny does. Whereas somebody like myself or Hassan, we are focused on a goal of actual policies that we're measuring ourselves against. So the further we go to the right, the further we are from our goal. We need the Central Committee Super PAC. I mean, honestly, Mike, I'm invoking my tier 3 account to get you to check my logs. Okay, what'd you say? I'm running against the former progressive caucus leader in WA7. I'm running to change the Democratic Party to a socialist party. Who rep Pramila Jayapal? Oh, Gwen, come on. Come on. Come on. There's no fucking way. Come on. I mean, unless there's a big wave of discontent at home, she's like one of the most powerful congresswomen. That's like probably the hardest difficulty ask you could probably make of me. Like, come on. She has you crowded out. I'm not saying give it up, but it's just like, that's not, that's rough. That's rough. I think one of the things is like, I think some people need to, how do I put this? I think a sports analogy is a good analogy. Let's imagine that you are playing football and the other team has a Hall of Fame inside linebacker, but they have some pretty bad corners. I don't know if you guys know football. The inside linebacker is a big guy who defends the center of the field, whereas corners are the guys that try to get interceptions. They cover the wide receivers, right? That's where you throw the ball. You throw the ball to the wide receivers, okay? If you have a Hall of Fame inside linebacker, you don't run up the gut every play. And it's not cowardice not to run up the gut. That's just called intelligent tactics. You don't waste your resources by attacking the enemy at its strength. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm going to run against a articulate woman of color who is one of the most nationally known politicians who's on the fucking finance and judiciary committee. You know, like, do you want to get 5% of the vote? Like, what do you want me to say? You have no lane. And none of the like left-wing groups are probably going to support you. It's just not happening. I don't know what else to say. Like, if that makes you hate me, then so be it. Like, I don't know what else to say. What makes me me is that I don't tell you bullshit. You know what I mean? There's 435 reps, and you're like, I'm gonna pick the one who's like the most hard to primary from the left. Like one of the bottom 10 hardest to primary from the left. There's no fucking, like, no, I'm not gonna waste my time on that. I'm sorry. Like, if you hate me, so be it. But like, I'm trying to tell you that you're wasting your time. Assad and Fuentes arguing on the timeline. I don't think you should argue. I mean, it is what it is. It is more helpful to run as a socialist and social represent, even though you lose. I mean, sure, but I'm not going to spend my money and effort and time on that. I don't care. I'm going to do what I set out to do. Good luck. I have run for office before, so I understand how annoying and painful and effort that is. But like, so I don't want to put people into battles that they cannot win and that are a waste of everyone's time. You know, like, it is what it is. If that sounds harsh, you've never had a political operative talk to you honestly in your life. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. It's the same way if somebody was like, I want to primary some Republican senator from Arizona, from Arkansas. And it's like, it is what it is. Good luck. Thoughts on Doug Jones? No chance. And here's the thing about running for office. You could run for office in any district in your state. You don't have to run in the district that you live. You could also move. So if you're looking at Washington State and there's all these people you could primary, you should probably pick the ones that are like Zionists. You should probably pick the ones that are like really far to the right so that we have a compelling reason. Chatter, if you want to run a successful primary, you should target Rep. Adam Smith. Yeah, exactly. Also, do you have org support, right? What orgs are supporting you? What volunteers do you have? How much money do you have? And if you have none of the three, you're not going to do a successful campaign for Congress. And I'm not saying this to like ruin your dreams. It's like, I don't feel that I could do a successful run for Congress. Or, you know what I mean? I don't feel like I have the stuff lined up for myself to do a successful run for Congress. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I'm sure I could probably raise, you know, $250,000. I could do that, but probably wouldn't be enough. Mike, I want to run for New York mayor to primary Zoran from the left. I mean, Ryan Paul isn't that good, but she's certainly like, again, bottom tier of all the choices. Okay, she's the 11th most left-wing congresswoman, according to the Left Tracker. She votes with the left 88.3% of the time. She's a co-sponsor of the Raise the Wage Act, Medicare for All, Block the Bombs Act, College for All Act, and the Ultra Millionaire Tax. She is not currently co-sponsoring the Recognizing the Nakba bill. I mean, and honestly, if she co-sponsored the Nakba bill, she'd probably move into the top 10. Adriano is the 82nd most left-wing rep. He seems to be a Zionist. He seems to be a progressive but Palestine type. Yeah. So he votes pretty left-wing on domestic stuff, but on wars and American imperialism and crypto, it seems like he votes to the right. So barely in the progressive caucus. So I would say a good candidate for a primary in a very blue area for sure. He's certainly not the worst Democrat there is, but he's definitely prime. This would be someone that I think you could primary because, you know, he's got a lot of bad votes. For Mila Jayapal, I just think the odds of that working out is pretty poor. This is like when Kat chose to primary Jan over someone like Eric Sorensen, who is a horrible Dem and an APAC candidate. Yes, exactly. I wouldn't primary somebody who is like pretty much one of the better reps, who is a Bernie Sanders like surrogate over like all sorts of horrible and the best rep in Washington State, or instead of like all these other horrible Zionists and like actual centrists. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of my general take on that. DSA Seattle is mad at her. What are they mad at her for exactly? Like, I mean, I know she's not perfect. I mean, a lot of people are really mad at AOC too, so, you know, it doesn't surprise me. But like, if you primary Jayapal, you will not get a Signal, org, or union endorsement. That's pretty true. I mean, that is pretty true. Jayapal is I would probably put Jayapal into what I call the unbeatable category. She might be the strongest rep in Congress as far as like, if you were to be like, Mike, who do you think is the least likely person to lose? I'd probably put her in like the top 5. AOC is like number 1. Ilhan is more likely to lose than her by a lot. Ilhan is unfortunately white people, you know, a black woman, you know, who's outspoken. White people have she's probably more vulnerable of the squad members. But she's not even that vulnerable. Why does Jayapal got that swag? Because she has crowded out her left lane and she has every single org on the, you know what I mean? Like she has the complete machine, plus she has pretty solid control over the left. There's like, I'm not trying to bully this chatter too much, but I'm just like, no, I have the rank and file. I mean, good luck. I guess we'll see. One of the worst things about talking about politics in general is that a lot of people have a lot less experience than you and they don't listen. And at the end of the day, it's like some people need to touch the stove, you know? They just need to touch the stove and there's really nothing more. Like their ego has decided at you know, and when people make a decision, their brain changes. And sometimes you just cannot get people to not do a thing. I had a knockdown, drag out fight with a candidate of mine who wanted to spend tens of thousands of dollars on billboards. And it didn't matter how much I had raised that money. It didn't matter that they were incompetent and hadn't gotten the money. It didn't matter that they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They were convinced, they were Gen Xer. They were convinced that billboards were a good investment with the money that I had raised. And they had never consulted with me about that prior to doing it. And we ended up losing by less than 1%. That billboard money could have been spent on maybe a mailer or another radio ad or another television, local TV ad. And they ended up losing by less than 1%. Now, was that billboard spend why they lost? Probably not, right? But we'll never know. So it didn't matter that I had basically recruited them. I had organized their entire campaign. I had helped them recruit hundreds of volunteers. I had raised them hundreds of thousands of dollars. It didn't matter that I had done all that. They had the checkbook and they had their ego. And ultimately, they made that decision. And at a certain point, you know, for me, I understand that being abrasive, being honest, and being unsparing is going to make people not like you. And a lot of people don't want that. They are more interested in people liking them than they are sticking true to their guns and being honest. And the reason why I'm telling you this, Gwen, is because I actually care about you as a person. And I have nothing to gain. And that is unfortunately not going to be enough. Let's move on.
Young people in this country are feeling a tremendous amount of frustration when it comes to what they view as...
I'm not taking any of this personally. Stop acting like I am. Okay. Well, all right. Mike, Zoran brought up Vienna today in his speech about housing policy. Link it.
The basic necessities of life, and young men in particular, those who powered Donald Trump to victory back in 2024, well, they're feeling a lot of regret over their vote choice. So what are we talking about here? Well, let's talk about what is right at the bottom. If you were building out the house in terms of the American dream, it is literally the ability to buy a home. And young people, well, there's not a lot of hope for them when it comes to buying a home, and these numbers have changed tremendously. Look at this. Okay, age 18 to 34, that is adults under the age of 35, will buy a home in the next 5 years. You go back to 2016, 2018, Gallup surveys, look at that. The majority, 53%, said they would buy a home in the next 5 years, those who didn't already own one. That number has fallen through the floor. Look at this now in 2025, 2026, just 29%, just 29%. That is nearly half the level, dropped by nearly half in just under a decade's time. No wonder young people are feeling so much frustration. Now, of course, if you're building out that home, right, in terms of what young people want, what Americans want in order to fulfill the American dream, well, it's not just buying a home, it's a good job. You go, leave the home, you have a good job. But young people at this point don't believe it's a good time to actually find a job. Take a look here, age 15 to 34. Say it's a good time to find a job. Now that percentage is just 43%, less than half. Less than half of young people say it's a good time to find a job. And look at this trend line. This trend line is going completely in the wrong direction. 4 years ago, it was 75%. Look at that. That's a drop of over 30 points in just 4 years' time. In 2019, back when Donald Trump was at the end of his first term in office, it was 77%. That's a drop of, what is that? That's a drop of 34 percentage points from where Donald Trump was in term number one, in terms of young folks saying it's a good time to find a job. And young men in particular, those who powered Donald Trump to victory, well, they are feeling a lot of frustration with the economy. Not a big surprise when they say it's hard to find a job and say, in fact, their aim to buy a home has fallen below 50%. Look at this. Young men on the economy, those that powered Trump to victory, men under 30 on economic conditions. Before Trump came into office, this is 2024 and early 2025, before Trump was inaugurated for a second term, 66% of them said it was, in fact, the economic conditions were poor. They were hoping that Trump would solve it. But they view the economic conditions even worse today than just before when Trump got into office. Look at this, 79% this year say that, in fact, economic conditions, young men, those under the age of 30, say that economic conditions are poor. The good percentage, it was 34%. It was just 1 in 3. But now it's just 1 in 5. 21% say economic conditions are good. And you know who they're taking their frustrations out on? Well, it's the man 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
This is how it always works, by the way. Americans go, economy good, that means president's good, right? They give credit for what's currently happening to whoever the current occupier of the White House is. This is how it's been my entire life.
Because look at how they view Donald Trump and the economy. Men under 30, these again are the voters who powered Trump to victory back in 2024. In the fall of 2024 versus Kamala Harris, Trump was more trusted on the economy than Harris by, get this, a 7-point margin. Holy Toledo, look at that percentage now. Look at how young men have turned. The net approval among young men for Donald Trump and the economy, minus 59 points. I'm laughing because the turn is so absurd. This is a turnaround of, what is this? Do the math with me right here, of 66 points. 66 points in less than 2 years' time, just a year and a half, in terms of feeling towards Trump and the economy among young men. And when you put it together, right, the economy being the number one issue, how do they feel about Donald Trump overall? Well, it's a different world. And I loved that sitcom back in the 1980s and into the early 1990s.
This is why they're going after Hassan Piker. Because if Hassan Piker can get these newly embittered young men to rotate towards the left, the Democratic Party will be fundamentally changed. They're trying to throw up as many roadblocks as possible and try to get Nick Fuentes to capture more of these young guys. That's the play that's going on right now. Everyone that is right of center is, is working to push people toward Nick Fuentes instead of Hassan Piker.
Great theme song. Men under 30 on Trump. Look at this.
Moderate social democracy.
2024 election, Donald Trump won that vote by 1 point. He was the first Republican nominee to win young men this entire century. But now it's a different tune. His net approval rating among young men, look at this, minus 55 points. Minus 55 points. That's a switcheroo of what this? That's 56 points. 56 points in just a year and a half. And I'm a little thirsty here. Ooh, today's soft drink of the day is Coca-Cola Cherry Float. Let's take a drink.
What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? The fuck? Oh God, that slurp. What the fuck?
That's nice. I do enjoy a good Coca-Cola Cherry Float. Now, of course, it's not just the economy. Not just the economy that is changing Donald Trump, or the views of young people on Donald Trump.
I gotta be honest, Chad, if you want a Coca-Cola cherry float, why don't you just get some vanilla ice cream and make a cherry cola float? Like, why would you want artificial vanilla in your fucking soda? Ugh. That sounds terrible. That's why vanilla Coke is disgusting, because it's not vanilla.
Of course, it's foreign policy. Because remember, Trump said, oh, I'll keep us out of foreign wars. And what's been going on the last few months? Well, the war in Iran. And young men don't like it one iota. Because just take a look. Trump and foreign policy. Okay, men under 30 on Trump and foreign policy. Back in the fall of 2024, look at this. Young men trusted Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 9 points. Today, look at his net approval among them. 54 points underwater. Jacques Cousteau never got that low, my friends. Jacques Cousteau never got that low. 54 points underwater. Again, this is a switcheroo of what? 63 points in just a year and a half's worth of time. My goodness gracious. And of course, everything that flows from the presidency. Trump is not on the ballot this fall, but it all flows downhill to those members of Congress, those Republican members of Congress. If they think they're going to escape the wrath of young men and the regret that they have for voting for Donald Trump, well, they got another thing coming, mister. They got another thing coming. Because just take a look at young men and the midterms. Okay, men under 30 on the midterm elections. You know, you go back to November of 2024. Democrats did slightly better than Kamala Harris, but not really. They won it by 3 points, which is a historically very small portion for young men, Democrats winning them, okay? Look now, though. Look in the average of polling right now, the 2026 race for Congress. Well, hello. Democrats are now favored by 28 points. Now favored by 28 points when it comes to the race for Congress. Young men overwhelmingly favoring Democrats. That is a 25-point switcheroo. A 25-point switcheroo. And again, just a year and a half.
Why is he slurping? Does he think you need to suck a can to drink? It's distracting me from the fact that men under 30 have become left-wingers and hate the Republicans as much as we do now. This has to be a Kalshi bet. So true. Why are you so focused on this? Because it's weird. And ultimately, this is everything that I predicted would happen. I kind of want to go back to my debate with Sam Cedar on right after Kamala Harris lost and see how it holds up. I wonder how that debate holds up. Do you guys think I look stupid? Do you guys think I look dumb? Here's another one. Andrew Cuomo. This race is fucking over. White men are leading the charge at 61%. White. Laney said that was the debate that brought me to this channel. Really? I feel like I need to, I don't know why other than Sam Cedar, obviously, and a few other people, but it feels like the YouTube lefties hate my guts for some reason. It's fucking weird. Am I crazy? Am I fucking crazy? Like, Sam Cedar likes me, obviously, but it honest to God feels like the YouTube lefties are not a fan of mine for some reason. The entire YouTube left are descendants of Vosh and Destiny. I mean, kind of true. You just have no motion on YouTube. Well, the way you get motion on YouTube is you have other left-wingers give you motion. Haven't you seen the way that they all collab in their videos and read each other's lines and shit? Haven't you guys seen that? Yeah, you haven't seen the integrated marketing? Yeah, that's what that's called. That's correct. I want to see you do an FD collab. I think FD Signifier has, I think there are people in his ear that are not fans of mine, to be honest with you. I like FD Signifier. I mostly agree with his takes, but I think he has a conception of me that comes from the Destiny space. This you do, Noah? Oh, I forgot to do the Noah to the Noah thing. I hope it went well. Would you do a collab with Overzealot? I have no reason. Of course I would. I don't have any problem with those guys. I was on Noah's last stream, the one that he was raising money for Palestine. Are you reaching out or waiting for an invite? What the fuck?
And in the United States Congress, I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people.
and male. That is the bro vote. People have been saying, how do we get young white men to vote for Democrats and the left? And the answer is be far left. I'm sorry. You want white men to vote for us? We gotta be far left. I'm sorry. Mike, your room looks so much better decorated now. Well, a chatter made me a tapestry, and then Vio got me a bookshelf, and Vio and I got some of my favorite books on there. You guys recognized that book? And then there's some other things in here. We got the cat tree, but I got the door closed so nobody else wakes up. I need a new desk. That clip you showed should definitely be considered treason. Yeah, it's fucking insane. It's fucking insane.
What I hate.
All right, chat. U.S. is starting to bomb Iran again, which is it's a sign things are going really well in the negotiating. The United States has just started bombing Iran again. The markets believe, though, that this is a sign that a deal is about to be signed for some reason, and oil prices are going down.
U.S. Central Command says that the U.S. military conducted self-defense strikes targeting Iranian missile launch sites as well as boats around the Strait of Hormuz. The attacks come as Washington and Tehran continue negotiating and as they may be closer than ever to ending the war. But disputes remain over Iran's nuclear program and the lifting of sanctions. President Trump laying out his plans for destroying Iran's enriched uranium, or nuclear dust, as he often refers to it as saying that it will be either transported to the U.S., dealt with on site, or taken to another acceptable location. I want to go now to CNN's Salma Abdelaziz joining me from London. Salma, you're also closely following the current and ongoing trip of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Is he offering any insight into where the U.S. and Iran are running into issues right now?
Well, it seems like by the hour, America is either on the precipice of full-blown war with Iran or about to get a peace deal, depending on who you're speaking to and what's just happened that hour. You mentioned the strikes, of course, around the Strait of Hormuz. Those just happened a few hours ago. We do have more information on where those occurred, with CENTCOM saying that they targeted missile launch sites in Iranian boats attempting to place mines. The statement went on to say that the U.S. is working to defend its forces while using restraint. Now, a note here, of course, there is a ceasefire that is in place now. Violations have happened in the past, and the ceasefire has carried on. So unclear how this will impact that at this point. But we do now have a statement from Iran's supreme leader. Before I read it out to you, I want to make clear that this is a written statement from the supreme leader, and it could have been written before these strikes occurred. Let me read out that statement to you. The United States not only will no longer have a safe haven for its mischief and for establishing military bases in the region, but day by day it is growing more distant from its former status. Again, an indication there of the type of military actions that Iran has taken in the region, striking at military bases, of course, in neighboring countries across the Gulf. It seems a hardening of position. But you mentioned, of course, those talks with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Those concluded in Qatar a short time ago, with the Secretary of State saying, look, it's a matter of wording, a matter of a few sentences that we're negotiating over now. But if you ask Iranian negotiators, they seem to indicate that the United States and Iran are still very far from a deal. The key issue, of course, is enriched uranium. As you mentioned, that no dust, no dollars, a statement that we keep hearing from U.S. officials over the weekend, indicating that 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium that the United States and President Donald Trump, of course, personally wants to see destroyed. Iran, on the other hand, says that a conclusion to the war must be finalized before it speaks about how to handle that enriched uranium. And again, hearing about those strikes around the Strait of Hormuz that just occurred in the last few hours, we're hearing from Iranian state media that there was the sound of at least 3 explosions around the key port, Bandar Abbas port in southern Iran. It says, Iran's government says, and Iran's state media says that air defenses were activated. Again, we do not know if this statement that we've just heard from the Supreme Leader, a written statement that was put out to mark the Hajj pilgrimage, whether that was written beforehand or afterhand. But the key question here will be, will those U.S. strikes affect those negotiations, and how far are they from the deal now that we're seeing those attacks again around the Strait of Hormuz by the U.S. forces?
Iran's Revolutionary Guards claim they have shot down an MQ-9 Reaper drone and opened fire on an F-35
That's
jet.
like our 30th one.
Another drone that they say entered its airspace, presumably somewhere around that region. Iran says it will retaliate over ceasefire violations. Now, overnight, the United States launched new strikes on southern Iran. You can see right here, hitting these sites that the U.S. say were missile targets. The U.S. claims it was in self-defense, and yet Secretary of State...
Guys, we're doing attacks in self-defense. I think a lot of these... I'm like pausing because I'm trying to communicate here, which is like, we have a media that is really just PR for the United States government, right? Like CNN claims to be independent, but it's not. They just repeat whatever the government says. But because they have a different group of letters next to their name, instead of saying CIA, it says CNN, right? So that gives it some air of independence, and it's not. It's just America decided to launch an unprovoked violation of the ceasefire by attacking Iranian territory this morning. That's what happened.
Marco Rubio says the two sides could be just days from some kind of an agreement. With us now is CNN Global Affairs commentator Sabrina Singh.
We're just days away. We're just days away, guys. We're days away. And until, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I feel like unless we start seeing real market crashes in European economies, then I guess there's just no change. There's no ability to care.
Sabrina, great to see you here. So we have these U.S. strikes overnight on Iran, and we just learned seconds ago that Iranians claim they shot down a U.S. drone. So where does that leave things as these negotiations continue?
What you're seeing is both sides claiming defensive strikes. They're both protecting their, air assets, defense assets on the ground. And so the U.S. took defensive strikes yesterday. Iran, just this morning, as we're seeing coming in, is also taking defensive measures. Now, the very tentative ceasefire, according to the U.S., is still holding. And even though it is still holding, I mean, we're still in the middle of a war. I mean, there's a naval blockade that is an act of war. So even though that you have this ceasefire, they're still exchanging fire. So it's now what happens next. And I think that's what's really to watch. What does the president say about this? And what does the supreme leader say now?
And of course, then there's Israel, too, right? Because Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, says that his war against Hezbollah and Lebanon is very much continuing. So what does that do to the negotiations?
And you've seen Israel actually intensify their strikes overnight.
So this woman right here used to be the Pentagon spokesperson during the Biden administration. She is a war criminal and a genocide denier. But I guess now she's just an official CNN analyst now.
On Hezbollah in Lebanon. I mean, basically what this administration has done is the house is on fire and they're trying to put it out with a bucket of water. And this is a deal to get a deal. A lot of the issues, the thorniest issues, whether it's nuclear enrichment or ballistic missiles.
Basically, if Iran opens the Strait of Hormuz, they have made a catastrophic mistake. That is the reality. Like, if Iran opens the Strait of Hormuz, they have made a catastrophic mistake. If they separate out different aspects of the deal, they have made a catastrophic mistake. The Iranians' position should be, their only leverage point they have is the Strait of Hormuz. So if they give that up, they have given up their leverage. So if the United States successfully manages to get them to separate the Strait of Hormuz from other activities, then they will have lost the war. And I know a lot of people are going to be like coping where it's like, oh yeah, but if they all that would be happening, it was restore the status quo. No, it wouldn't. Does the United States have the ability to reconstitute dead bodies into living human beings again? Has the United States repaired all the damage that has been done to Iran? Have they given compensation equal to the costs? Has the Iranian economy recovered? Unless the United States is, writing checks for hundreds of billions of dollars, opening the Strait of Hormuz would just be a defeat on the behalf of Iran. The United States will have demonstrated that they have the ability to attack Iranian civilians and military leadership and pay no consequences. The only position that Iran, could reason, if Iran wants to maintain their sovereignty, they cannot reopen the strait until the world economy takes a shit, until there is real economic pain worldwide. And the fact that the markets believe that the strait is about to open is assisting Iran's own oppression. Iran should communicate, we will not negotiate for 30 days. We need a 30-day cooling off period with no attacks on Lebanon and no attacks on Iran at all. Those are the kind of statements, or 7-day or whatever period they want. Those are the kind of statements that need to happen, like for their position to actually have teeth. But unfortunately, they have been maneuvered. Maybe it's because there's a cultural gap. But right now, the Iranians are being seen as about to capitulate. But that's been true for months now. And they haven't capitulated. So the markets are treating them as having capitulated, but they're nowhere near capitulating. And that is giving the United States extra strength to carry on.
Capabilities are being pushed further down the line. And meanwhile, you have Israel still conducting strikes in Lebanon, even though part of this so-called deal was that would stop. So again, it's more about what does this administration do? What is the messaging that comes from Donald Trump today? I think there is not a world in which this administration wants to start back up on kinetic strikes, which is why they keep pushing this ball down the line. But we are where we are. Intensifying strikes in Lebanon, and of course, you're seeing an exchange of fire in Iran as well.
The Iranians know what the U.S. wants and doesn't want, presumably, which may be why the United States seems to have, I don't know if budged or moved a little bit on the language on the nuclear talks. This is a statement from the president yesterday. The enriched uranium will either be immediately turned over to the U.S. to be brought home, destroyed, or preferably in conjunction and coordinated, blah, 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 blah.
Why would you destroy enriched uranium instead of turning it into like fuel or something? That's insane. Why would you destroy it? What the fuck?
Destroyed in place, right? Destroyed in place or at another acceptable location. This means the uranium stays and the Iranians destroy it there, presumably, but this was sort of a no-go.
It's an element. What do you mean destroy it? It's an element. If you bombed it and say it got shredded and throw it into like dust, right? Well, then you could collect it all and then re-smelt it. What the fuck are we talking about? It's an element.
Area before.
This is much more lenient.
Downblend. He didn't say, okay, downblend it. All right. Well, then you need to have nuclear facilities. And they have nuclear scientists and chemists, nuclear chemists, in order to downblend.
Than we've seen from the president than we've ever seen before. I mean, at the beginning of this war, February 28th, it was that Iran would never get access to a nuclear weapon, would not be able to keep its enriched uranium. This is signaling a bit of a gray area. And I think that this administration is hedging that they're going to need some type of third party to come in here. I mean, I don't think it'll be acceptable under any terms that Iran keeps some of its enriched uranium, but we've never seen language like this, and it does lean more towards Iran and its favor.
So, okay, these are the nuclear sites inside Iran, the uranium buried presumably
Bizarro denims, bro. Oh no!
Underneath some of these facilities right now. When we say destroyed,
you see a brown woman doesn't mean it's denims. White people, dude.
It's again murky. What exactly that means? That means you could degrade the uranium.
Same hair? I don't think so.
60% enrichment to what, like 5 or 10%? But that's still potentially
it's the hairstyle, Mike.
Useful down the line.
Right, and that's why the deal to get
a
deal.
Somebody make a compare and contrast picture of the hairstyles.
Does not address any of these issues. And you'll remember the Iran deal that was negotiated under the Obama administration, that took almost 2 years to get to. And there were many mechanisms in place to monitor some of these sites. We're not seeing any of that being negotiated out in the public on what does monitoring look like, what actually happens to the enriched uranium. And they haven't even addressed their ballistic missile program, which is one of the capabilities that we know Iran still retains. So even though this administration has said they've destroyed Iran's Navy, destroyed Iran's Air Force, those were never the programs of record that Iran touted. It was always its nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and those still very much remain in the status quo before the war started.
So again, watch what's happening very much in the air and on the ground, continued strikes, and we'll listen for what they have to say about the negotiations. Sabrina Singh, thank you very much for being here.
President Trump posted this meme shortly after those strikes. Obama's Iran policy, he shows piles of cash. Trump's Iran policy, missiles flying. So bringing in now CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier. Thank you so much for being here. Needless to say, these presidents do have very different approaches to Iran. But I want to start with this attempt to get to an agreement, this attempt in the talks, because we are really hearing from a wild mix of politicians who are upset with the White House. I'm going to give you an example. Here is John Bolton, former national security advisor, giving this, as usual, sort of counter-textual take.
I hope the negotiations break down, because every day that goes by is a gift to Iran. I think these negotiations are a mistake. I think we're on the verge of something that ultimately history will decide was a catastrophic loss for the United States. We have done significant damage to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and right now we're letting them undo the damage. This is what Iran wants. They want more time. 60 days turns into 6 months, and then it turns into more than that.
I love how CNN is just these warmongers that have absolutely no democratic legitimacy among the American people. Like this is the deep state. This is the way. This is why no one watches this shit. Like, honest to God, like, I feel like us watching this video is more actual human beings watching this than ever will really click on it. What was the views when I clicked on this? 85,000 out of 19 million subscribers. That's insane. I walked into your house and started vigorously defending myself. Yeah. Like, even everyone normal, like all the normal people are like against this. How many 60 days have there been? When is Congress going to do its job? Because they're Republicans. They don't do anything. I think one of the mistakes that people make, and this is a very important political science insight that you need to know in order to be a serious person, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of serious people, is there are no self-executing laws and rules or norms. I'll say that again. There are no self-executing rules or laws or norms. They all have to be enforced socially by human beings. You cannot write a constitution that prevents tyranny. If the people don't care to defend their rights, then it will fail. You cannot create a system without the consent and activity of human beings. There is no, the reason why the Constitution is a failure is because it is anti-democratic. Because the will of the majority of people are good and honest, but their ability to exercise influence on the system is blocked by the anti-democratic features of the system. And we are seeing that because the elites have personal profit from abusing our system in an anti-democratic way. And we have a massive agency problem where the institutions and incentives of the elite are different than the incentives and well-being of the masses. And until those two things are aligned, your system will fail. And the one thing about China, what makes China's system so effective, is that they have aligned the incentives of the masses with the incentives of the elite. If you want to advance as an elite member of China, then you have to improve the conditions of the people that you have a responsibility for. And if you don't, then you do not advance. And that is why their system is more effective than ours. We have not created the systems in place to punish betrayal, to punish exploitation, to punish corruption. The elites succeed from corruption. And until we fix that system, we will just get more of the same.
You and I have talked about Iran wanting more time, but can you help me understand what he's saying about this is somehow catastrophic, a loss, the dangers that some people are seeing in the White House approach?
U.S. intelligence has already detected that Iran is using this time to access its nuclear sites, rebuild and rearm. It has built drones at an amazingly fast pace. So every single day it gets of reprieve from bombing means it's more ready to attack again. Also, Iran has talked about now lifting the ban on the internet. The interesting thing about that is they don't want to foment dissent, but they're willing to take the risk because the Iranian economy is under such strain, and a lot of the economy runs on businesses that use the internet. So that shows that the stress is hitting Iran, but it is getting a relief by these days without attacks.
It's interesting because we've talked so much about what the president is dealing with here domestically, but in Iran, they have an incentive, right? You have a supreme leader who is relatively new. You have people who have been under this bombardment. Is there any incentive for them to move forward, or is it, as Bolton says, waiting is all that matters if it means claiming victory over the U.S.?
There is incentive to draw out the talks, as there always has been. This has been their MO in previous negotiations. And remember, what they're being asked to do is a sacrifice of what they see as legitimacy, give up their refined nuclear material and
all of it, not just like some enriched parts.
Yes.
It's just like everything goes.
And they will pledge never to make a bomb again. But my question is, will these talks produce what the Obama deal did? Intrusive international nuclear inspections.
Intrusive inspections
to make sure
is key, yeah.
It doesn't happen again. So what Iran is being asked is really hard to say yes to, especially when you've got so many hardliners now empowered by the U.S. attacks. So, look, what this shows is that President Trump knows going back to just hammering Iran won't open the Strait of Hormuz. He's feeling the economic pressure, so he wants some sort.
I was looking up Kim Dozer's biography. Apparently, she got hit with a car bomb during the war in Iraq. She was with like an American infantry unit, and she got fucking car bombed during a patrol. Ouch.
Of delay to open the straits. If he can get that, I think we could see talks returning to the JCPOA, sort of. It will take weeks, it will take months to get some sort of resolution.
And either way, I get the sense both sides will be spinning it into a win, even though we're looking at a stalemate.
And John Bolton will not be happy, nor will any of the hardline GOPers who wanted to see Iran truly decimated by these attacks.
Decimated. Ah! So what if we weren't spending fucking hundreds of billions of dollars on the war in Iran? What could we buy with that money? What the fuck could we buy with that money? That's what the new Second Thought is here to
Let's get straight to the point. We are still at war.
War is likely to resume, and the rift between the U.S. and its allies appears to be growing.
And among the many reasons why that sucks, one major thing about war is the billions of dollars going to drones, ships, and now AI companies that'll give us minutes like these. We are going to pay a hell of a lot every single day for the next, who knows, both economically and with real human lives. So with so much up in the air right now, we thought we'd make a quick video to find out just how much it's all going to add up to, and then do a little math to see how we could have spent that money instead. Let's talk about what we know already. The first week in Iran racked up an $11.3 billion bill in munitions alone. Every day since has been an extra $2 billion on the pile. That is an insane amount of money. It's gonna get a lot worse. Just a month into the Iraq War, Bush revealed it had already cost the US $20 billion, or about $690 million a day. By that point, we'd been in Afghanistan for 2 years with no end in sight. But Bush was confident that Iraq would only take another 5 months or so and 20 billion more, so 40 billion total.
We must stop the terror. Now watch this drive.
Except 4 years later, as Bush was getting ready to leave office, we were still in Iraq, we were still in Afghanistan, and W was going to Congress asking for an extra 190 billion to keep everything going. It was only 20 years later we finally got the real price tag of the war on terror. $14 trillion. The Pentagon spent $14 trillion between 2001 and 2021, about $8 trillion of which went to the 9/11 wars specifically. That is more than the wealth of all these billionaires combined. And we can say with confidence that that money was well and truly wasted. Between 30% and half of the $14 trillion went straight to just 5 companies: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman. The rest was spent mostly on things like taking care of veterans, poorly for what it's worth, and paying back the war debt with interest, which has already added a full $1 trillion to the bill. And for what? The Taliban went from being in charge to still being in charge. Millions of people died, the US is despised by an entire region and much of the world, and it didn't prevent any new wars from breaking out. For more on that last point, see Any News at All? Alright, quick plug, then we'll get back to it. As always, want to respect your time, so here's a timestamp to skip ahead if you're not interested or not able to support the channel. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. This show runs on viewer support. That's just the reality of doing this kind of work. There aren't a lot of companies lining up to fund openly socialist content, and even when they do, that's not something I want to depend on long term, because at the end of the day, if your funding comes from corporations, there's always going to be pressure there. And sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really not, but it's never on your terms.
The thing about being a curly hair guy is it's perfect for making YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Like you condition, you know, you get a little mousse in there, you do the crimp, you know, you smooth it down, you make sure there's no frizziness that day. Then you pop on and you record, right? You have it on the good hair day. But did he run a brush through his hair? No. You getting curl mogged, bro? Sort it out. Okay, dude. These are very tight curls. I have tight curls, but these are extremely tight curls. This kind of seems like curling iron to me. Kind of seems like he got a little bit of professional work done.
So
announcing a housing policy, yeah, I have it. We're doing our Iran war segment. I try not to be so ADHD and like go back and forth on different topics so much. I try to do a nice little block of discussing one topic. So we're talking about the Iran war and why it's stupid. We'll move on from this after this probably.
Alternative is pretty straightforward. If we want this kind of content to exist, it has to be supported directly by the people who actually watch it.
True. If you want this content to survive, you have to actually subscribe.
If you're in a position to help out, Patreon is the easiest way to do that. You get some nice perks too, including
I pissed off one of my tier 3 subs who wants to primary Pramila Jayapal today, which sucks. You know what blows, chat? Like, I talk to the chat every day about like being tactically sharp, and it's like, come on. And I just cannot get people to be tactically sharp. I just can't do it. I don't know why people don't listen to me. What is it about me that makes people not listen? Because I just don't have leverage. People operate off of leverage and not from reason. I need to like get a leverage, I guess. Mike, will you just support me if I decide to primary AOC or Ilhan Omar? No. Did you get Mike Pompeo and Victoria Nuland getting owned by Stephen Wald and John Mearsheimer? What? Where was this thing? I want to watch the whole thing. Where can I get the whole thing?
Versions of every video and access to our patrons only Discord. Really work there, share to those of you who could learn. So okay, let's imagine that we could learn from history and not throw another 14 extra big ones down the drain.
Why is this so dark? Am I losing my mind, or is this really dark? Is my like what the fuck?
How would we spend that money? Because we do have money problems. These days, about a third of us are skipping meals to afford healthcare. So let's start there. What would it cost to just fix that? Shockingly, only $290 billion per year. Max. That's it. That's what universal healthcare would cost us at the very most. For context, Trump just requested that the Pentagon's budget be up to $1.5 trillion per year, meaning we could give the world.
That's definitely wrong. By the way, there's no way this is right. No, this is wrong.
For context, Trump just requested.
There's no way it's 290. That's incorrect.
Requested that the Pentagon's budget be up to $1.5 trillion per year.
That's just wrong. Like what? Like what the fuck are you talking about? There's 350 million people in the country. You're not giving them all healthcare for 290 billion. That's no. We would probably need to have at least $10,000 per person spending. So what? That's 3.5 trillion. Probably, I'd say somewhere around there would be the Medicare for all spending. Healthy people don't even cost 1K to insure. Yes, but we're covering everyone, not just healthy people. So some people are going to cost millions and some people are going to cost nothing. So I would say somewhere around 10K per capita is probably a good estimate. That's what per capita means. How much is currently spent on health care per year in the United States? Why am I the only person who actually knows what these numbers are? U.S. healthcare spending reached 5.3 trillion, which averages to 15,000 according to the AI. We don't have to trust the AI. We'll go to senators. We'll go to this. Get a better source than the AI. The United States is currently spending $14,775 per capita, according to the Peterson Foundation, the most of any country in the world. So if we did 10,000, that would actually be a significant reduction in spending. And if it's Medicare for all, that means that we're covering everybody. And if you're wondering how we could do that, the answer is we're getting rid of trillions of dollars of unnecessary spending on insurance companies, and we're bringing it all into one insurance company, which means we get to get rid of all the like billing departments of hospitals, all the wasted lawyers, all the compliance people, all that bullshit for all these. Every insurance company is an administrative duplication. It's a private bureaucracy. So if you can consolidate all those bureaucracies into one bureaucracy, you get a lot of efficiency. Canada's per capita healthcare spending is 9.6 Canadian dollars. 9.6K Canadian dollars. Yeah, you guys are underspending. So that number is, I don't know what the fuck that number was.
Meaning we could give the war budget a 20% haircut, still be miles ahead of every other country militarily, and not starve ourselves for aspirin.
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, man. What is the source of what he said? Cost of proposals for single-payer healthcare systems based on Medicare's fee-for-service program. I don't think he's interpreting this correctly. I'm not trying to bust him up here, but I believe it being accurate, chat, and I don't think he's accurately interpreting this correctly. Today I will now discuss how single-payer healthcare systems based on Medicare fee-for-service program would affect our nation's healthcare and budget and its economy. The Congressional Budget Office has analyzed 5 options in detail among many possibilities. These options illustrate the effects of differences in providers' payment rates, payments cost sharing, systems coverage of long-term services, and supports. Federal subsidies for healthcare in 2030 would be significantly larger, with the increases in subsidies ranging from 1.5 trillion to 3 trillion. National health expenditures would change by amounts ranging from a decrease of 0.7 trillion to an increase of 0.3 trillion, depending on the system's design features. Okay, so what's happened? Okay, now I get it. Okay, here's what he's not understanding, which is fine if you're not a policy wonk. You don't get it. The government would have to spend 1.5 trillion to 3 trillion more per year. However, the economy would be spending less on healthcare. So in order for that to work, the federal government would have to borrow 1.5 to 3 trillion more a year, or it would need to collect new taxes. Now, luckily for us, everybody is no longer paying health insurance premiums at all. All that money goes away. So that's money that everybody now has that they didn't have. And so we could tax that new money and you would still see your paycheck go up. So you would no longer have an insurance premium, but we would need to enact new taxes in order to pay for Medicare for all. And if we did all of that, that could net out to an increase of 0.3 trillion or a decrease of 0.7 trillion in healthcare related spending in the economy wide. So the government would grow, but the healthcare insurance industry would be erased. Does that make sense? So I have no idea what, I guess he thought 0.3 trillion was the new spending, but the new spending would be 1.5 to 3 trillion, not 0.3 trillion. That's economy wide. So either we'd save 700 billion a year, or we would spend 300 trillion more or 300 billion more on healthcare per year. And the number, whether we save 700 billion or spend 300 billion more economy wide, I thought you said taxes don't fund economic activity. They don't, but you also need to have balance, because if you have too much borrowing, you're inflating the currency too much. You have to take money out of the economy, or you'll overinflate the economy by producing too many dollars. There is a balance of the monetary flows. So you tax in order to reduce inflation. That's what MMT teaches you. And I feel like I've talked about this a number of times in a very basic way. I feel like I've talked about this for like 7 years at this point. I'm financially illiterate. Sorry. Okay. Taxes are the destruction of money. At the federal level, at the fiat currency issuing level, taxes are there to destroy money. They don't go into a bank account. They go into a shredder or a furnace or an empty null, like they just get deducted from your bank account and it goes nowhere. But that's good, because your obligation to pay taxes is what gives money value. You need those taxes in order to pay. You need the cash to pay your taxes. So you need to exchange resources in order to get cash. If we issue too much currency and there's not enough taxes, then the price of goods and services will go up faster than the rate of the economy is growing. That causes inflation. Inflation, as you experienced, can be bad. So in order to prevent inflation, you need to take out some of the money out of the system by taxing it.
Universal healthcare would cost us at the very most. For context, Trump just requested that
Mike, you need to change the unit. Second thought is saying extra cost per year. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, man. That's not what that's not what the CBO report says. I just think he fucked up. I just think he fucked up and he doesn't really know the details of Medicare for All. Medicare for All is a lot of money, but you would end up having a bigger paycheck because the cost of Medicare for All taxes would be less than your insurance premiums. So you would have better health care and a bigger paycheck. That's why Medicare for All is good. Yes, we would have to raise taxes, but you are paying a tax. It's called a premium. It's just a tax going to a private bureaucracy instead of the government. So if we get rid of the private bureaucracy, replace it with Medicare for All, you'll pay more taxes, but you'll have more money in your check at the end of the day. That is why it's a good policy.
the Pentagon's budget be up to $1.5 trillion per year, meaning we could give the war budget a 20% haircut, still be miles ahead of every other country militarily, and not starve ourselves for aspirin. Universal healthcare is the norm in every single wealthy country and in many less wealthy countries in the global south. It's a system that makes sure that anybody...
Does he really think it would only cost $200 billion to do Medicare for all? This is like cooking me. This is cooking me. I'm trying to be nice here.
Regardless of how much they make or what they're going through, can see a doctor and get their prescriptions filled at no or very low cost. If that sounds insane to you, it's the norm for billions of people worldwide. Universal healthcare works by saving...
Mike, go back to the report and read. Federal subsidies for healthcare in 2030 would be with increases in subsidies ranging from 1.5 trillion to 3 trillion in 2030. Not till 2030, in the year 2030.
Billions of dollars by eliminating price gouging and the need for useless insurance middlemen whose only job is to deny our claims. Here in the US, getting universal healthcare would mean no more medical bankruptcy, something that 500,000 Americans deal with every year and that affects exactly one country, the United States. For 30% of us, universal healthcare would literally be the difference between getting a life-saving procedure and eating that day. And that $290 billion figure is just the worst-case scenario. According to a painfully thorough Congressional Budget Office report, 4 out of 5 universal healthcare proposals currently on the table would actually save Americans between $42 and $743 billion a year. We'd only add to the budget if we chose the 5th option, which makes it a priority to pay providers and drug companies a lot, doing low cost sharing for individuals, and covering long-term support and services. In every other proposal, including...
I guess he's conflating economy-wide spending with federal expenditure, which is not really accurate, right? Like that's get curl-mogged. You're actually stupid. You're actually making this. You're actually stupid. In Medicare for All, that would require the entire medical expenditure finance industry to be absorbed by the government, which means government spending would need to increase trillions of dollars per year. And when you compare that, economy-wide spending of all insurance companies is then captured by the government and spent by the government, then there will be an economy-wide reduction of spending. That's what they're talking about. It costs $3 trillion a year from the government and will require $3 trillion worth of new taxes to fund and spending and borrowing, right? So you couldn't do Medicare for all by only spending $200 billion or more. $200 billion or more. You would have to raise $3 trillion in new taxes and borrowing per year. Why do people not know this? This is so basic shit. This is a very, and it's, oh my God, it's still a good thing to do that. But if you say it costs $290 billion, you didn't read it correctly. The government would have to spend significantly more on healthcare, which would be good because it would be replacing private health insurance, but it would be trillions. It would be the biggest expenditure of our government. The Pentagon would be 1.6 trillion and Medicare for all would be like 3.5 trillion. So it would be like double or triple the Pentagon budget. Again, this would be good because you're currently paying private taxes called premiums. but it's very important that we understand the scale of what we're talking about. He messed up. He messed the fuck up. Period. Mike, you're doing the cat freak out again. Yeah, I'm doing the freak out where it's like, I know what I'm talking about, and the people who disagree don't. And I have to sit here and ponder whether I should I like cover up the fact they know what they're talking about, or should I just like correct them so they can get better? And then people want to be embarrassed that they got something wrong instead of just accepting they got it wrong.
Medicare for all, we save money. But if we really wanted to spend on healthcare, since that is the point of this video, we could always just pay for people's medical.
What you're saying is it wrong? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Either you prove that I'm wrong, or you're permanently banned. You have 5 minutes.
Debt and cancel all of it. That would only be a one-time $220 billion fee, and it wouldn't even make a dent in the Pentagon budget. How many of you watching are struggling with medical debt? How does it make you feel that our government could just pay it all off with the stroke of a pen? But they won't. Sorry, that money's spoken for.
The reason why I'm correcting this is because it discredits our movement and makes us look stupid to get this kind of basic stuff wrong and not understand the scale of the programs that we are advocating for, right? Like, if you don't know how much this stuff costs, if you don't have an actual set, like you want to reimagine the American economy, but you don't even know the basic facts of what you're talking about, it makes us look stupid to anybody who does. And the thing is, AOC knows that I'm right. Bernie knows that I'm right. All the people that are, Abdul knows that I'm right. All the people that are actually advocating for Medicare for all are like, they understand the scale of what we're asking to do, why it's revolutionary. If it was just 200 billion, it wouldn't even be we would have done it by now. If Medicare for all was $200 billion a year, they would have done it by now. Okay, like, it is not that. It is 3 trillion. It's $3.5 trillion, right? Like, that is a complete reimagining of a large section of our economy. That's why there is a big resistance to it. That's also why it's such a good policy. And when you misinform your audience and you make basic factual errors of this magnitude, it discredits what you're saying.
Gotta kill a bunch of school kids halfway around the world. Does that make your life better? No? So, what else could we do? Let's do something fun and notoriously expensive.
Okay, let's see what I'm the Beast has proven me wrong with. Healthcare just simply won't be 10,000 per capita. Your number is too high. Goodbye.
Like high-speed rail. While countries like France, Japan, China all get to enjoy convenience.
In my chat, we have a certain intelligence level that you must pass. For some people, this stream is just not appropriate. Like, for some people, the stream is just not appropriate. You're just, it's like Calculus 3. If you can't pass Calculus 2, you're not allowed in. At a certain point, I can't waste my time with this kind of shit. I'm sorry.
Cross-country travel on bullet trains from the future, we're stuck waiting.
I think his argument is that it would cost 300 billion more as opposed to probably save more money compared to our current system. That would be 300 billion on top of 3 trillion. Why are you not listening to the words coming? Is this hard? This is arithmetic. This is fucking arithmetic. Oh my God. You were spot on the per capita. Here's from Sanders. Financing Medicare for all. This is a question that bookends nearly every media conversation that takes place on Medicare for all. The straightforward answer is we already are. Unlike other government allies, for example, a ship in the Navy, Medicare for all does not represent any new spending at all. Instead, it represents a rebalance of how our current dollars are spent. Congress were to authorize the Navy to procure an aircraft carrier, the necessary funding, the federal government would spend approximately $13 billion building that ship. Congress does not authorize and appropriate the funding, then the ship will not get built. People will not individually purchase an aircraft carrier, nor will any private corporation. Healthcare is fundamentally different. If the status quo stays in place, between 2022 and 2031, the federal government will spend $59.65 trillion. According to estimates from the conservative Mercatus Center, under the Senate's Medicare for All legislation, these expenditures will drop approximately $2 trillion. So from $59.65 trillion to $57.69 trillion. So we're saving $2 trillion out of $60 trillion. Another study represented by PERI at the University of Massachusetts found that Medicare for All could reduce total healthcare spending in the U.S. by nearly 10%, resulting in more than $5 trillion in savings. Today, the traditional Medicare program only spends 2% of its costs on administration. That's less than 1/6 the administrative costs of private health insurance companies. Studies have found that the U.S. could save up to $500 billion annually in billing and administrative costs by moving to Medicare for All. That money could be used to greatly expand primary care in this country and make it certain that all Americans get the health care they needed when they need it, saving billions on expensive emergency care and hospital visits. Moreover, the United States pays by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, because Congress has done nothing to regulate the price of medicine. If the U.S. joined the rest of the industrialized world and negotiated with the pharmaceutical companies to lower prices, our country could save $113 billion per year. A Medicare for All system not only benefits individuals and families, it would benefit the business community. Small and medium-sized businesses would be free to focus on their core business goals instead of wasting precious energy and resources navigating an incredibly complex system to provide health insurance to their employees. All right, let's scroll down here. Today, the United States has the most expensive, inefficient, bureaucratic healthcare system in the world. Despite the fact that they're the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare for all, we have 34 million Americans who are uninsured and even more who are underinsured. And now we spend more than twice as much per capita on healthcare as the average developed country. I have to admit, chat, that it is today's like today that make me want to quit. Like, I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest with you. If people could watch me for 7 years or whatever the fuck and be this stupid, then we're fucked. Like, we're legitimately fucked. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, this is some sad shit. This is like embarrassing. Like, and the fact that people tell me not to correct the record, if you think I shouldn't correct the record, say it now so I can permanently ban you for my own fucking mental health. I want you to leave. That's true, not a Fed. That's true. I mean, it's like, according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, we spend more than $10,700 per capita on healthcare. Meanwhile, Canada spends this, France spends this is back in 2019, so the numbers are a lot higher now from inflation. Goddamn, dude, who cares? Okay, where's that guy? Like, legitimately, this stuff is embarrassing. Like, and it makes me like it actually, this is one of those things that like actually makes me like, this is what fucks up my morale. Stupidity really gets to me, because this is not hard. This is not hard. Like, it's not even infighting. It's just ignorance versus like basic knowledge. This is no infighting. There's no doctrinal disagreement here. There's no ideological disagreement. This is literally just basic fucking arithmetic. It's, can you add 1 + 1? Like, this is just stupid people that are stupid. And he made a mistake. And I don't think it was malicious. He just made a factual mistake. He didn't understand exactly what he was reading, which is okay. But we could not reduce the budget by 10% or 20% and pay for Medicare for all. That's not right. That's not even close to right. So we learned nothing and made no changes at the Abu Ghazaleh crash out. There's no crash out here. Medicare currently costs Thank you for being an intelligent chatter. Holy shit. Medicare currently costs $1.1 trillion. Medicaid costs $1 trillion. Estimates in studies that state Medicare for all as a whole would cost $3 to $4 trillion a year. So Medicare for all would cost an additional $1 to $2 trillion annually. The country would save $1 to $2 trillion annually, depending to compared to now. And everyone would have total coverage of virtually all healthcare needs. Exactly. But I think it would probably cost more than this, and the savings wouldn't be this much. The savings are between no savings at all, meaning our economy as a whole would spend $300 billion more, to $0.7 trillion. That's what the CBO was saying. The CBO was saying, depending upon exactly how you build the plan, either we'll save $700 billion economy-wide, or we'll spend $300 billion more than we are currently spending on healthcare. So it depends on exactly how you set up the system and what you cover, and how you budget, and how you negotiate prices for certain things. The study he got that number from assumes the government adds a tax equal to insurance premiums from 2020. Exactly my point. This stuff is so basic. It actually gives me heartburn. I need to move on. I don't even know what to say anymore. Holy shit. This is why people need to not try to think and just vanguardism just upgraded to S. The most important thing is that you just have someone intelligent telling you what to do instead of you trying to figure it out, because the arithmetic fail. Holy shit. This is why in China, you can't join the Communist Party unless you're in the top 10% of your class. That's why you got to be recruited in. You can't just join. Mike, I get it. I'm exactly like you when I argue, but I believe you'd care at least a little bit about how Second Thought might interpret this clip. I'm sure Second Thought just made a mistake. I'm not yelling at Second Thought. I'm yelling at the people that disagree because I'm not in the room with Second Thought saying, oh, you misunderstood this. And then he's doubling down, right? He didn't do that. I'm yelling at the chat who are doubling down, right? That's the people that I'm yelling at. Second Thought is a cool guy. He's allowed to have mistakes, right? If you're being obtuse, fucking leave. You're not worth my time. You're wasting all of our time. Part of like what you got to understand is that for the most part, this is a dialogue, but there's also standards. If you're not capable of keeping up, then you're not welcome. That's okay. Being ignorant is not the problem, by the way. Not knowing the facts is not the problem. It's arguing the facts when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's when it becomes a problem. And that is a life fuck up for you because I'm not the only person you're doing that to, right? Like I'm not the only person that you're wrong. You're intractably wrong about a basic fact. And then you argue in a really disgustingly annoying way. You're doing it a lot in the rest of your life, and that's fucking you up. So I'm helping you. No investigation, no right to speak. Exactly. Jesus fucking Christ. Wow. I almost feel like it's an advanced troll. Like the best troll that's ever happened. Thank you, Sue219. It's like, I know the exact way to troll Mike. Be a fucking longtime chatter who's intractably stupid.
And let me hear it if you're ready to build a better New York together. Thank you for being here today as we...
Chat, look at it like this. Why are folks like Anna Kasparian and Brianna Joy Gray fucking up? Because they defend their egos when they don't know shit. Exactly. Embarrassing. Jesus fucking Christ. Is it bad I looked up the word intractable? It's never wrong to look up something you don't know. It's never wrong to ask a question. I want to clarify this just for people that feel like I'm saying you're not allowed to be uninformed here. No, I want you to ask me questions. I want you to learn. I want you to interact in a curious fashion. I want you to act in a way where you don't have an ego. But when you don't know what you're saying, I don't want you to try to chime in when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about to disagree with me. I want you to be curious, and I don't want you to insist on the wrong answer. After I pulled up the CBO report, read it to you, explained what it meant, and by the way, if you think I'm wrong, you're allowed to say, hey, Mike, I think you may be wrong on this, this, and this. That's totally fine. But it's then when it starts to get to the point where you're just doubling and tripling and quadrupling down, and you know what the fuck you're talking about. At a certain point, there's nothing more I could do for you. It's the cocksure stupidity and the doubling down. Yeah. Well, they're defending their parasocial YouTube guy because he made a mistake. I may not personally have or prefer your temperament, but you're 1000% correct of being curious and standing by facts. A little bit of assholery is probably necessary at this point. I mean, what do you want me to say? Mike, why haven't you shilled yet? Because the vibes are fucking rancid. And like, that's part of the problem is that people don't want to have, I don't want to have this meta conversation. Like I really don't. We're going to make it a joke. From now on, it's going to be fun when I have to do this. I'm not going to be mad about it. I've decided to change my mind. We're going to have fun when I rip a chatter a new asshole. It's going to be a positive experience for everybody. We're going to make it a good time.
Create a more affordable city. Our administration's first day in office, many of us who are here today joined the mayor in the lobby of a long-neglected building in Flatbush. There, he signed 3 executive orders related to housing. Our work to stand up for tenants and build a more affordable city has continued from that moment on, informed by the approach set out in those 3 executive orders. So now, 145 days later, it is my immense privilege to introduce someone who has truly put the fight for affordability at the center of our politics, Mayor Zoran Mamdani.
Superstitions, black cats and voodoo dolls.
Are you putting the cat's feet in my face? How?
Good morning, my fellow New Yorkers. Let's go Knicks. What you may have heard as I walked on was Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca, which was the #1 song in the country the last time the Knicks were in the finals. So I began today with a walk through Gowanus, past towers that will soon offer hundreds of affordable homes, past buildings with tenants whose organizing has transformed their standard of living, past Wyckoff Gardens where NYCHA residents are starting to see the change that real investment can bring. It is a privilege to finish that walk here at Powerhouse Arts. I want to acknowledge a number of leaders we have here with us. We have members of my administration, as you can see on stage and across the crowd. We also have our council member, Shahana Hanif, whose district we are in. We have the former council member, Brad Lander, who is here with us as well. We have Michelle De La Luz, the executive director of Fifth Avenue Committee. And I want to give a special shout out to the incredible coalition that's gathered here today, from Housing Justice for All to labor unions, including Local 79 and 32BJ, to Open New York, to tenants unions, to every single New Yorker that is coming here together today. Nearly a century ago, beneath the metro train tracks in East Harlem, 12 miles from where we stand today, James Baldwin was born. His family lived modestly. His father made a living as a factory worker and a Baptist preacher. His mother raised 9 children, but still they had enough to build a life in New York City, a city they sought out during the Great Migration, a city where opportunity was within reach. Life was not easy, but a better future felt possible, in no small part because they had a home. That home allowed their eldest son to grow up on the same streets as the artists of the Harlem Renaissance, to learn and read in the 135th Street Library, to become one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. Echoes of this story have been heard countless times in homes and apartments owned and rented across the 5 boroughs. When New Yorkers can afford a home, they can afford to dream. Yet the opportunities of the past have drifted out of the present's reach. It is nearly impossible today to find affordable housing in New York City. We face one of the most severe housing crises in American history. It is the single largest driver of the affordability crisis. All over Harlem now, there is felt the same bitter expectancy, Baldwin wrote in 1948. There is nothing anyone can do about it. Today, too many New Yorkers feel that same bitter expectancy, the sense that nothing will ever get better, as they watch the rent climb, as they stay up late trying to find a way to afford to stay in the city that they love. This crisis did not arrive all of a sudden. For centuries, New York City built enough housing to keep pace with our population growth until the 1960s. Over the past 60 years, however, government helped create the housing crisis we now face through a series of choices. Beginning in 1961, zoning reform reduced our housing capacity by 80%. Further, bureaucratic changes only exacerbated how difficult it became to build. In the 1980s, the Reagan administration implemented drastic cuts to our public housing system, leading to decades of NYCHA's decline. In the 1990s, new rent stabilization loopholes incentivized landlords to increase rents and push New Yorkers out of their apartment. These choices restricted growth and caused costs to balloon. They allowed bad landlords to neglect their tenants with impunity, and they turned a blind eye to crumbling public housing. These choices brought us to this moment. Today, we choose differently. If the absence of good government created the conditions we now face, the presence of good government can build the solutions we now need. I am proud to announce that New York City will propose, pursue, and deliver solutions to this crisis through our historic housing plan, block by block, a plan that matches not only our city's size, but the scale of our city's ambition. Before I share the details, I want to speak directly to every New Yorker who may be skeptical, because I know there are many. Some may be skeptical that the city can build, or that building is even the right solution. Others have watched the housing crisis worsen year after year, but have been left out of the conversation on how to fix it. And I know there are many who doubt that change can ever come. I want to speak to the skeptical New Yorker because I was once the skeptical New Yorker. Before I was mayor, before I was an assembly member, I worked as a housing counselor for New Yorkers facing foreclosure. Every day at our offices in Jackson Heights and Richmond Hill, I spoke to homeowners reckoning with the pain and complexity of this crisis. Rising costs, a daily fear of displacement, living under a cloud of anxiety that one-off emergencies could lead to mortgage delinquency. And every day after work, I came home to buildings going up in my neighborhood and neighbors asking who they were for. The conversation around housing was framed as a simple binary, a question reduced only to yes or no, a side you had to take between structures and people. Do you believe in building or do you believe in fighting for tenants? Should we build our way out of this or should we organize to preserve what we have? For a long time, the two were framed as mutually exclusive. I wanted to make a difference in the lives of New Yorkers who were facing this crisis. So I began to work for candidates who championed the tenant movement, a movement that won stronger rent stabilization laws and a right to counsel for tenants in housing court. I eventually ran for office myself and joined that fight in Albany, fighting for better protections and helping to win good cause eviction, a policy that prevents sudden displacement and price gouging in our city. As we made it easier for New Yorkers to stay in their homes, one thing became increasingly clear. There was no way to drive down housing costs without also building more housing. I knew the lessons of Vienna, where for nearly a century, municipal government has built and financed housing directly. And data from other American cities told a clear story of what that building could lead to. Between 2015 and 2024, 120,000 homes were built in Austin. In December of 2021, Austin's median rent was $1,546. By this past January, it had fallen to $1,296, even as the city's population continued to grow. I saw these same patterns in Minneapolis and Seattle. It was clear, when it comes to housing, the binary we face is not between structures and people. It is not between building and organizing, nor is it between the tenants of today and the tenants of tomorrow. It is a far more basic one. It is between a government that debates and a government that delivers. We can keep people in their homes and we can build the homes that they need to live in. We have spoken about this crisis long enough. It is now time to do something about it. Our housing plan meets this crisis with the scale and urgency it demands. It invests billions of dollars in new affordable housing production. And it continues the vital work of protecting tenants from bad landlords and displacement.
The Vienna mention, huh?
So let's get into it. The first plank of our plan is...
The thing about Austin, like, Austin is a shithole. That's number one. And I really think you guys need to understand that when I say it's a shithole, I'm not just talking about, like, the people there or something. I mean, there are plenty of really cool people in Austin. What I mean by it being a shithole is it's got a lot of really low quality, easily available, flat land. Like, it's, you know, it is not a place that is constrained geographically like Los Angeles or New York. They're not building hyper dense. Okay. It is not really the reason why Texas is growing is because it is ideally materially situated for the type of low density suburban development on cheap land that America knows how to do. You're not going to solve Los Angeles or New York's problems with an Austin or a Houston model. You need intense densification like China has done. You're not going to do it by like marginally fiddling with a few, regulations or zoning. It's nonsense.
All about building. We have set two of the most ambitious housing targets in modern New York City history. First, we are delivering on a promise we made during the campaign. Over the next decade, city government will build 200,000 new, affordable, rent-stabilized homes. This historic production push will increase the number of homes for homeless New Yorkers by nearly 45%, helping us connect thousands of those in need with permanent housing. Second, I am proud to announce, for the first time in our administration, that we will preserve and stabilize an additional 200,000 homes. Together, these 400,000 homes will be affordable for working people, and they will be made possible by historic $22 billion capital investment over 5 years. When it comes to affordable housing, no plan of this scale has ever been imagined by a past mayor, let alone proposed. We are the largest city in the nation. We have the resources, the talent, and the will to achieve this. Expanding our housing supply will also kickstart our economy. As we build 200,000 new affordable homes, we will support an average of 30,000 good-paying jobs each year and generate 12,700 permanent jobs once these homes are completed. There is no path to meeting our 200,000 goal of building new homes without meaningful changes to our city's zoning code. Last year, New Yorkers overwhelmingly approved ballot measures making it easier to build across our city. Our housing plan embraces these changes and commits to pursuing further reforms that not only make it easier to build, but help New Yorkers move into these homes faster. Our plan will pursue a multi-pronged strategy to make it easier for New Yorkers to buy a home, including creating hundreds of new affordable co-ops and community land trusts. And we will also make it easier for homeowners to stay in their homes as we combat deed theft and relaunch the Mortgage Assistance Program. Combined, these efforts will lead to growth beyond anything New Yorkers have seen in generations. For some, the dream of homeownership will finally be within reach. Others will be able to sleep easily in homes they no longer fear losing. The second plank of our housing plan includes some of the strongest and most expansive tenant protections anywhere in the United States of America. There is a reason why I put tenants front and center on my first day in office, when I visited a long-neglected, rent-stabilized building and declared that we will not wait to deliver action. Nearly 70% of New Yorkers do not own their homes, and yet tenants helped to carry this movement to City Hall because they believed in a city that could actually fight for them, that could actually protect them from bad landlords, that could actually ensure that their struggles would shape the policies that...
Do I think DSA doing centralism would be better for the org? You want my honest answer? Am I in charge? If they're democratically centralized around dumb fucks, then no. I think it would be bad. There is no system that makes the decisions good. What I want is good decisions. The process does not deliver good decisions. You can get bad decisions democratically. You can get bad decisions from a centralized vanguard. What I want are good decisions. It's like when Brace says he wants to keep the police, but they work for him now. Unironically, yes. Unironically, yes. If the police are arresting Elon Musk, that's good. I don't need to do some fucking three-dimensional chess where it's actually not really police arresting him. We're not really arresting him. We're putting him in citizens' custody, and they're not police. They're public safety and revolution defenders or whatever else a semantic game you want to put on. If the police are arresting Elon Musk and putting him in prison, that's good. And that is the difference between my politics and some other people's politics. So when you say centralism, is DSA making good decisions? That's what I want. And I don't have faith that process equals good decision. That is a liberal belief. And I don't know, we got to make people smarter. Part of that is like helping them get educated as children. It's a long-term project, right? Like some people's brains have been damaged too much by microplastics or whatever the fuck chemicals, or they got hit too many times in the head, or they didn't get enough nutrition when they were a kid, and I can never fix their brain. Maybe there's some sort of random genetic mutation that happened. A cosmic ray hit the sperm. Some people I can't fix.
Impact their lives. This plan that we present today was guided by New Yorkers' testimony during our rental ripoff hearings, and it reflects their concerns and their needs.
Without a coherent political line to align around, democratic centralism will not positively affect DSA. In order for anything, okay, I'm going to answer that question in a more philosophically grounded and intelligent way than I just did. Basically, the problem with any kind of centralism is the legitimacy of the org. Like, how dedicated are you to the org? Would you cotton to a line that you fully disagree with? Would you not criticize it publicly? Would you put the same effort into a line that you didn't agree with? Like, how willing are you to take orders, basically? The problem with these kind of organizations is they don't have People don't understand or even accept the idea of taking orders. A lot of leftists are the type of people who reject taking orders at all. And revolutions are military, and they require military discipline. And discipline means subsuming your individual will for the greater whole. Will you do a thing that you don't want to do because you were told to do it by people that are in authority over you? If the answer is yes, the institutions are very strong and the organization is very strong. If you're not willing to do that, well, then the organization's orders are meaningless. You can only be directed if you accept direction. Direction is going in the way that you're told to go. Are you willing to go in the way that you're told to go? I don't have a lot of faith with America's socialist movement that there's a lot of people that are like that right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't even get people to accept facts that are just like objective in reality without getting lip. How can I get you to do something that you may not understand, right? Like, that's the other thing. Like, there's no way, you know, like, so that's the problem with like just going, oh, why don't we just centralize? Would it cause a split, right? Like if I told a DSA member and they were a certain type of anarchist and I said, you have to work to help elect AOC, are they going to do that? Are they going to try to help elect AOC? Or are they going to, if I said you're not allowed to post criticisms of AOC on Twitter now that she's our endorsed candidate, of like, you know, you can't call her not a, you know what I mean? Would people cotton to that? Of course not. They would consider that to be an imposition of their freedom. So like, you know, and there's not a culture. And by the way, it doesn't have to be like, I order you to do something. There's also not like, there's another way of doing it, which is like cultural, social opprobrium, right? Like you don't pay, like if I go up there and I was like, fuck AOC, who gives a shit? She's a fucking non-socialist. Let's who gives a fuck about voting in this primary? It doesn't matter. People aren't going to be like, oh my God, you're such a fucking moron. You're not going to be embarrassed for that position, right? You're not going to be socially ostracized for that position. If anything, you might even gain from that position. So there's no culture of solidarity. There's no culture of like acting in a way in alignment with the organization. It is a bunch of people individually deciding to join an organization and they opt in and opt out based on their own subjective individual kind of like opinion. And that's crooked timber to build the ship of revolution, let me tell you. Willingness to follow orders is grounded on degree of trust and belief that the results are positive. The MAGA cultists trust Trump absolutely and incredibly believe that the results will benefit them. Yes, that's a very strong strength that Trump has. Yes, being a MAGA cultist is embarrassing because they're fucking stupid. But as far as Trump's individual power and ability to effectuate change, it's incredibly useful for him that people trust him so much. It's just unfortunate that it's in the hands of such an incompetent, corrupt piece of shit. People, you know how people are MAGA cultists right now? They used to be FDR cultists. They used to, you know, the way that people treat Trump now is the way a lot of white people used to treat FDR. Like that's that is really fundamentally, well, what we're really talking about is Bonapartism, which is the idea of like having some sort of great man of history that, you know, advances us through some revolutionary stage because of the cult of personality around him. What I call regime guys. In China, the MAGA chud loves Xi Jinping. In China, the personality that would be a MAGA chud is crying over a revolutionary movie about communists. You know what I mean?
Empower tenants.
That's why I'm telling you, Graham Plattner is the American Mao Zedong. Mark my words. Yeah, that would be cool, but I don't think so, chat.
We will place a.
Why not PSL? Because they don't have enough popularity. The problem with PSL is that they have 5,000 members. The problem with PSL is that they don't have a legitimate connection to the masses. The problem with PSL is that people confuse having good takes with being politically relevant. That number would quadruple overnight with your blessings. No, at most I could get like it to go up by 10%. As much as I wish I had literally thousands of people that would listen to me, that's not the case. Marxist parties are built slowly until consciousness changes rapidly. I'll be honest with you. The project of building some sort of like party that's sitting inert while the process of like agitating the masses is being done by someone else sounds boring to me. I'm not going to be doing that, right? Like I'm going to go out there and try to do the change.
Special emphasis on those in the Bronx who have so long been excluded from investments, who have been subjected to acute neglect, and who have faced destructive fires at the highest rate in this city. I am proud to announce a legislative task force to overhaul our city's outdated housing maintenance code. When I say housing, you say maintenance code. We will catch problems proactively and prevent them from becoming full-blown hazards, from day-to-day negligence to major breaches of fire code.
What I like about Zoran is he is the nerd. He's the kind of guy who is a fucking nerd. I don't know how we got so lucky to have one of these guys in our movement. And we actually have somebody who is trying to make improvements and develop a real system. All right, Chad, I'm going to piss everybody off because Bernie Sanders went and rallied with Graham Plattner.
Senator Bernie Sanders is an independent Vermont. He caucuses with the Democrats. Graham Plattner is Democratic candidate for the Senate from Maine. They have been out together as part of the Fighting Oligarchy Tour. They have an event tonight after our show. It's good to see you both, gentlemen. Mr. Butler, let me just start with you. Today, of course, is Memorial Day. People are observing. There's people barbecuing, and there's people commemorating folks and thinking about what this day means. And obviously, someone who served multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, someone who's spoken incredibly movingly, I have to say, just personally, very movingly about your experience of that, of being in those wars, just how you're feeling and what you're thinking about today on this memorial.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Chris. And this morning, actually, Senator Sanders was gracious enough to honor the town of Sullivan, Maine, which is my hometown, to join us at our Memorial Day event. Memorial Day is always a complicated day, I think, for those of us who saw a lot of combat. It's a day where we want to remember, and we need to not forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice. But as you mentioned, it's also a day which a lot of people in our society treat as like a holiday. And that's always a little complicated, I think, for those of us who remember our friends who we lost. It's also, quite frankly, at this day and age, a reminder that the best way for us to honor those who have sacrificed for this country is to not create more opportunities for government to waste people's lives, like we are seeing in the war in Iran. I very much believe that we need to take moments like today and realize that we have a resource in this country, in the young men and women who are willing to serve it, and it cannot be squandered lightly. And I very much believe that we need to build a politics in the future that takes it seriously enough to not start wars like Iraq or Afghanistan or what's happening in Iran, and realize that the best respect that we can show is by only using it in times when absolutely necessary.
Senator, you've spent a lot of time on the Veterans Committee in the United States Senate, and Veterans Services and healthcare has been an issue that has been very, very front and center for your career in the legislature, both in the House and the Senate. Your thoughts, particularly as we get some news that maybe there isn't a deal to end the kind of frozen conflict with Iran right now?
Well, certainly, I hope that there will be. The problem is we have a president who lies.
Here's the thing with Plattner. I'm going to say it, and this is the ultimate take on Plattner. The type of people that are like anti-Plattner are upper middle class people. They are upper middle class people who don't like his aesthetic. They consider him to be trashy and low class, because he is. And they hold themselves out as he's the hoi polloi. They have contempt for that. They don't like blue collar white men. They just don't. It doesn't have anything to do with his politics. It doesn't have anything to do with his policy. He is just a trashy white guy. They don't like trashy white guys. That's what it's about. It's aesthetic, which ironically is the fascist politic. And this is the reality of it, right? Which is like, I don't give a shit about your aesthetics. I don't give a shit about who you posture yourself to be. I care about what policies do you support. And that's what I care about, because that's what actually affects us. And a lot of people, they loved Barack Obama. They fucking adore Barack Obama. What did they love about Barack Obama? The aesthetic of an effete upper class man who dressed well and spoke well, but passed neoliberal policies that smashed the working class. They fucking love Obama, even though he was a genocidal maniac, even though he was the guy who set up the BlackRock program to guard the embassy workers. Graham Plattner worked for a program Obama set up for 6 months before he quit. And for them, that's enough to condemn Plattner. Do you ever hear them condemning? When's the last time you heard these people condemning Michelle Obama or Barack Obama all day? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't spend that time doing that. Meanwhile, Graham Plattner, the reason why this shit gets pushed is because he's actually supporting policies that will challenge the status quo. I vote for a legislator to vote for bills. That's what a legislator does. They vote for bills. And then their other part of their job is to advocate for shit and recruit more people into the causes they support. That is the job of a legislator. Vote for bills, recruit people in those causes. He's doing a good job on the first, or sorry, on the second, and all his promises are lined up with what I want him to vote for. That's what I vote for. I don't give a shit about anything else. It's all bullshit. It's rapping. And that's why you'll consistently see, you can predict whether I like someone based on their policies. And of course, what I perceive, there is a level of like electability, right? Like there is a level of like plausibility. There's a lot of people with really good policies, but I judge them to not be a serious campaign for a variety of factors. Like they don't have community support. They don't have money. You know, the campaign they're running it, they have a strong incumbent, that they don't have a good, you know, that they have no motion politically or, you know, in the sphere of communication. The district is unwinnable. Like there's a lot of different factors that just go in to whether or not I think a campaign is a serious campaign. And sometimes that can change, right? An incumbent can go from really strong to very weak from a scandal. And then suddenly I decide the campaign challenging that guy is viable. And then I want to rush resources there. These are contingencies, right? And Graham Plattner is running in a purple seat. This is very important, chat. This is very important because if somebody like Graham Plattner, an anti-Zionist, pro-Medicare for all, anti-establishment candidate, can win in a purple state and then stay progressive and stay popular, that discredits the argument that we have to aim for less. It gives us more ability to run in campaigns and run in more and more places because we have the proof. Because a lot of people believe that being left-wing is unelectable. A lot of people believe that. A lot of people think that being more left-wing, even if they agree with the policies themselves, makes you less likely to win. And the more examples we have of left-wing candidates winning in purple seats, flipping seats, the more we can argue, actually, no, the policies you support are not only good because you support them, but they're actually electable. That is the cognitive shift that we need to make in this country. And so many people that are already persuaded as left-wingers, they don't recognize that cognitive shift hasn't occurred. The idea that being left-wing is not just right, but it's good strategy. That is the cognitive shift we are focusing on. We've persuaded the majority of people on the policies already. The question is, do they believe that a majority of people believe the same thing? Do you understand the theory of mind that we're on? And Graham Plattner, this is the ultimate example of a big tent. Okay? This is a guy with bad aesthetics for left wing. As Hassan says, think like a woke, live like a chud. And a lot of people think the way you live is the way you think. And that is, I'm sorry, a sign of being in an upper middle class or upper class bubble. And so a lot of the people from those spaces, they look down on somebody like Graham Plattner. That's why so many of you agree with me in this chat, because you're probably a lower middle class white person too, right? How old was your mom when she had you? Is the question I like to ask people. My mom was 22. How about you? And if they're like, well, she had just finished her master's degree and she was 37. She had frozen her egg. Well, that kind of tells me that you're an upper class person, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's fucking based. I love that your mom was able to control her reproduction and have a great career. But you probably came into the world in a different class. Dude, you're so right. Yeah, I know what this is. Because I look at the people that trash Graham Plattner. They are upper class people. You're not seeing like working class white people who are intrigued by Bernie Sanders going like, oh my God, I can't believe Graham Plattner. I can't believe he was an infantry man. Like, what the fuck are you saying? That's silly. That's why you need to fight him so that the person who voted for the war stays in office. It's just nonsense. Tabernacle. Yeah, there is a lot of foreign leftists, non-American leftists who don't understand America, whose analysis of American conditions is off. And they do well when they're talking about theory or history. But when they're talking about American conditions, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And like, I gotta tell you, being in the military is what a lot of poor people do to be upwardly mobile. It's actually the hack. It's actually the hack. A lot of people do it. And because in America, if you're a veteran, we have a social democracy. There's a program for subsidized housing loan if you were in the military. There's a free college education with the GI Bill. If you get disabled, you get a basically universal basic income for your disability. It is a fucking, and then you get VA healthcare coverage. It is literally a good social democracy if you spend time in the military. So people, do that. I mean, it is upward mobility. And then there's a veteran housing preference, or a hiring preference, rather. If you're a veteran, you can get a job in the government easier if you have a veteran status. This is literally how so many people rise out of poverty, is because it's the only path. That's called the poverty draft. And the only people that have the, if you are somebody who's poor and you decided not to do the military because you oppose it, intellectually, I think that's cool as hell. I'm not saying you're lesser. I'm saying that is honestly cool of you. But if you don't understand American conditions, say so. If you don't understand the conditions of being a poor person in America, say so. And like it is what it is. Then okay. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't consider his veteran status to be an asset for the left, but it's certainly, is it side of he's some sort of super evil guy? That's just nonsense. It's nonsense. I mean, Bernie Sanders, one of his most popular moments for the 2020, and you can see how far things have shifted from 2020 as far as the online left posturing. Like, the weaker we got politically, the more the posturing started. The weaker we got politically, the more people had to differentiate themselves as more lefter than thou. The less we had the ability to effectuate policy both here and in Europe and in Asia, the more people started posturing as if they were the most moral person. Some nonsense. I'm as poor as fuck and have gotten so many letters. I'm a young 19 trying to move out of a toxic household. I'm not doing that shit. Hell yeah. I'm not telling you to join the military, especially now. Do you want to die in Iran? Like, that's, and I kind of think of Plattner as kind of it's a good litmus test for how serious of a person they are. For me, it's not that you have to like the guy. It's just whether or not you understand that his victory is necessary for the left to succeed electorally. If you actually want to see policies enacted, he has to win. If anything you want to have, like if you want the American state to change policy on anything, he has to win. It's actually that simple. It's not even a complicated question. And that's why I say what I say. It's not because I love the guy. It's because I'm just being honest. And people don't like honesty. They really, really don't. They really don't like honesty. What they want me to do is play along with their social game. And I refuse to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you, if Graham Plattner loses, the left is going to be severely harmed by that defeat. And it's unfortunate that people cannot see that. And we have to pretend like it's, we can stand aside. His background could mean people don't trust him in the first place. Veterans are some of the most popular group among normies in this country. Is our politics about appealing to people that already agree, or is it about achieving victory in this country and changing it? The tattoo is just, he's a dumb fuck. He got a dumb tattoo. It's covered up. He doesn't have a Nazi tattoo anymore. He had a tattoo that he got covered up that was a Nazi tattoo, and he didn't know what it was. But when he found out, he got it covered up. That changes the description, doesn't it? He had a Nazi tattoo, or he has a Nazi tattoo, instead of he got a tattoo, and when he found out that it actually was a symbol of the SS Totenkopf, he got it covered up. Like, that's a different thing than he's got a Nazi tattoo and he's a Nazi and he spread Nazi ideology. Half the people at Hoscord were saying N-words 10 years ago. They were literally spouting racist shit. As far as I know, I haven't seen any of this Nazi Graham Plattner evidence. I saw him be a cringe white boy from Maine, the whitest state in the country, or the top 5 whitest states in the country. Mike, I'm college educated. I didn't know what a Totenkopf was. I did because I've studied the fuck out of the World War II because I'm a nerd. So I knew about the SS tattoo. I know about the pedophile brigade, which, by the way, I'm sure if I search Twitter, there's people talking about it. What is it? The Durvalger Brigade. I can't remember how to spell it, chat. There it is. Durvalger Brigade. There we go. Durvalger Brigade. Not spell it. Thank you, sicko fuckers. You want to rate for the second coming of Jesus? They don't actually want the second coming of Jesus Christ. Have you seen how they treat AOC? They think they can get one congressional vote out of the 1,000 she's made that they can say is not up to their standards. Like they care about congressional votes 99% of the time. It's they have a conclusion. I want to hate on AOC. And then they desperately find anything they can grasp in order to do it. It's not a principled critique. It's they have a conclusion and then they grasp at straws. If you don't know what this is, basically this was a brigade of pedophiles that the Nazis released from prison to go and kill civilians and rape them. The unit's crimes continued until it returned to Poland to help suppress the Warsaw Uprising in 1944. Crimes included the mass rape and murder of 15 Red Cross nurses and killing thousands of civilians. After troops entered a makeshift military hospital, they killed the wounded with bayonets and rifle butts before gang raping the women. The naked, bleeding nurses were taken outside, hanged by their feet, and shot at their stomachs. The unit would carry out atrocities during the Wola massacre, in which more than 40,000 Polish civilians were killed in reprisal on the orders of Himmler. If he was a Nazi, you'd see it in his Reddit. Of course not. Of course he's not a Nazi. I'm sorry that we have to have these conversations so often, but there is a group of people in our space that have made Graham Plattner this like they try to make it as if you support Graham Plattner, then they're gonna go after you. Well, here's what I say to that: bring it on, motherfucker. We'll see who wins. Why the fuck are leftists so against the idea of people learning and changing? As if half the lefter than thou motherfuckers chasing Graham were saying slurs in the 2000s is using 4chan. I say this as a black person in many leftist spaces IRL that has heard countless stories of non-black people's edgy phases. Here's the thing. I'm not here to tell you that it's okay to be edgy. The problem is Graham Plattner, they're not even saying he was edgy. They're saying he had a tattoo he didn't understand and that he served in the infantry, right? Like that. And so therefore they're not going to support him. In a country where being a military veteran is like one of the most trusted professions that you could have. 70% of people trust you more if you're a veteran, and only like 7% trust you less. So if you're in that 7%, okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to tell you to trust veterans more. I'm just saying you're in a bubble. You're in a non-majoritarian bubble. And if Graham Plattner was out there arguing for bad policies, that would be one thing, but he's not. He's arguing for good policies. He's winning the primary and then standing next to Bernie Sanders. He's not backing down on being anti-Zionist. Even though the online left is trashing him, he's still not going right. When all the incentives in the world are to go right, he's not. And it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, are you okay? Do you think if Graham Plattner loses, they're going to say, it's because he was a veteran. It's because he was a veteran, guys. And the American people hate veterans. That's why Graham Plattner lost. Graham Plattner lost because principled leftists refuse to support veterans. Do you think that's what they're going to say if Graham Plattner were to be defeated? Do you think that's going to be the lesson learned by the Democrats, to the political class, and the country, and even normies? You think normies are going to learn that lesson? They're going to go, you know, he was a veteran, so we can never nominate a white veteran again. That's what they're going to learn. Like regular people from Maine are going to learn that. That's what they'll learn. That's the lesson that people are going to learn. No, what they're going to learn is progressives can't win. The left is weak. Anti-Zionism is deadly for your campaign. You got to support Israel. The left is not a secure way of achieving power. You need to grift to the center.
All of the time, and it's hard to know what is true and what is not true. But, you know, going back to what Graham just said, I am thinking about my generation, where we experienced the war in Vietnam. 59,000 plus young men died. Many more died after they came home on the streets, the drug addiction and etc. And that was a war based on a lie, as was the war in Iraq. And we need a foreign policy which is designed to improve life for people all over the world, to do our best to make sure that we do not have these never-ending wars that we're now seeing in Iran, and which honors and respects the men and women who are prepared to sacrifice their lives to make sure that they do not have to put their lives on the line in wars that should not be fought.
The title for the event, the tour, Senator Sanders, that you've been on, called the Fighting Oligarchy Tour. This is one of those stops. I think one of the people I think that you would consider an oligarch, and I think probably fits the textbook definition, would be Jeff Bezos. Of course, you know, one or two richest men in the world, depending on what the stock is doing that day. And there's been an interesting debate that's opened up about taxes, about tax fairness. Particularly different Democrats have had different proposals about tax fairness. And I want to play something he said about his own tax verdict and get your response, Mr. Plattner, and yours, Senator Sanders. This is what he had to say about the idea of doubling his taxes and that it wouldn't really help very much. Take a listen.
If people want me to pay more billions, then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. I promise you.
Mr. Plattner, what do you think of that?
Oh, I think it's abject nonsense. I think that's what somebody says when they don't want to see their taxes go up. There's absolutely no question that if we target the wealth where it has been hoarded, frankly, for decades at this point, and we pull it back into our system and put it into social programs like healthcare, like childcare, like paying teachers what they are worth, we will absolutely improve the lives of working Americans and, quite frankly, improve our society as a whole. It's, I think what he is pitching is propaganda. It's meant to protect himself and protect his crony friends. And, we're going to come after them for it.
Senator, he also pivoted to an idea of like cutting taxes. No one in the bottom 50% would pay any taxes. There's been a lot of Democrats, interestingly, proposing things along that line, big exemptions at the bottom. I think Senator Booker has a version, Senator Van Hollen. People, I think, who talk about this progressive. Congresswoman AOC has come out against it, saying, look, the best way that we build a kind of society and tax system that works for all is that everyone's paying in and everyone's benefiting, more like what we see around Social Security, Medicare, more what we see in Europe. Where are you on that?
Well, what I know is that today we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of this country, much worse than the so-called Gilded Age. And I know that at a time when the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 93%, when people like Bezos and Musk own more wealth than, so many Americans combined. Musk himself owns more wealth than the bottom 53% of American households. Meanwhile, the effective tax rate of billionaires is lower than that of a nurse or a truck driver. So, of course, we need to demand that the wealthiest people in this country, the billionaire class, start paying their fair share of taxes, which is why I've introduced legislation calling for a 5% annual tax on the wealth of billionaires. That's less than 1,000 Americans. And Chris, if we do that, we raise enough revenue to provide a $3,000 check for every man, woman, and child in families under 150,000. We can make sure that everybody who was thrown off of health care by Trump gets reinstated. And we can do enormous things for the American people. The point is, there is so much inequality right now that taxes on billionaires can transform life for the working class of this country, which is right now struggling to pay the bills.
Mr. Plattner, you're trying to make the case to the folks in your home state of Maine to vote out a 5-term incumbent, someone who's been a real, I think it's fair to say, an institution in Maine life, and comes from a sort of political family and has been there for a very long time, probably has name recognition.
That's true. Susan Collins is the institution. She is an institution. That is 100,000% true. She is the establishment. And by the way, like the argument of Susan Collins is, I've been in office so long that I've got seniority and I'll give Maine more money in the appropriations. I will buy you guys off with extra cash. That's her argument.
North of 99%, I think it's fair to say, in Maine, who has beaten back other challenges. Why do you think, what is different this time? What is the case for why Mainers should turn away from someone who has been such an institution in that state through Democratic and Republicans?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, because as an institution, she has overseen the deterioration of material conditions for working people in this state. I mean, where we are today is worse than where we were when she entered the Senate. We have fewer hospitals. We have fewer schools. Housing has become an abject nightmare for younger people in the state, and elderly for that matter. We have seen people living on fixed incomes see their benefits continue to stay small while the price of everything else goes up. She has been in the U.S. Senate through all of this. And more importantly, she has votes on her record time and time again that show that she is not willing to go out of her way to either stand up to Donald Trump, stand up to the Republican Party, or stand up on behalf of the working people in her state. She had a charade for a long time that she was an independent. I think that charade is very much come to an end because of the reality that we're living in. But it's not going to keep the people that support her from dumping in as much money as they possibly can. The billionaire backers of Susan Collins, they know the stakes of this race. Any road to a Democratic Senate goes through the state of Maine. They're spending accordingly. And I will say for those watching, if you want to help out, GramForSenate.com. We can really use it.
Senator, your thoughts as someone who's known and worked with, I mean, obviously across the aisle, but you're one state over. You've known Susan Collins for a long time. What do you think about Mr. Plattner's chances?
Well, I think Graham is going to win. And I think he is going to win because the people...
By the way, can I just say something that maybe you guys don't know, which is a really fun fact? Bernie Sanders flipped his seat. Bernie Sanders won a seat that was held by a Republican. When Bernie Sanders got into Congress, he did so by beating the Republican and the Democratic Party at the same time. There was a Republican incumbent. Like, people say, like, oh, Bernie Sanders could only win, in deep blue states. Oh, he could only win in deep blue states. Like Vermont, that's so deep blue. It wasn't deep blue until Bernie Sanders won. Bernie Sanders, 1988 United States presidential election. Bernie Sanders, 37. Peter Smith, 41. Bernie Sanders lost. Democrat finished in third. And in 1990... Bernie Sanders won, flipping the seat from red to redder. He had to beat the Republican and the Democratic Party, and he kept doing it. 94 was the big Republican wave, and Bernie Sanders almost got taken out. That was the Newt Gingrich wave. So when Bernie Sanders won, he wasn't in a deep blue seat. In fact, Vermont was one of the most ancestrally Republican states in the entire country. It didn't even vote for FDR. All these arguments are fucking nonsense, and they always have been. Then, as you can see, the Democrats kept challenging him. They kept trying to run. So when Bernie Sanders would win, he had to win with Democrats continually fucking challenging him. Isn't that fucking crazy? They kept trying to get rid of him.
In Maine, the people in Vermont, people all over this country understand that right now the economy is totally rigged. So what's going on right now? People on top have never, ever had it so good. While working families struggle, or elderly people can't afford their prescription drugs, while young people, everything being equal, will have a lower standard of living than their parents. So what kind of economy is that? And the people also understand, as Graham just said, that the political system, campaign finance, totally rigged. Does anybody in their right mind think that it's a good idea for our democracy that billionaires can pour unbelievable amounts of money to defeat candidates like Graham or other progressive candidates around the country? That's a corrupt campaign finance system. And nibbling around the edges and establishment politics and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, we're beyond that right now. The system is broken. The system is corrupt. The system is dominated by the billionaire class. People want real change in Maine, in Vermont, and all over this country. That is why Graham is going to win.
I saw an article yesterday. We were starting to get some of the money filings for these independent expenditures, right? Who are the biggest donors in this cycle? Mark Andreessen, who's a big right-wing tech guy who is one of the most sort of like zealous boosters of AI and right-wing politics, and says things on podcasts like no one should ever engage in self-reflection. It's an actual thing he said. It's a real quote. He's actually the #1 donor in this cycle so far. I think it's $115 million he's given so far. And Senator Sanders, the last thing for you, because you've been spending some time talking and thinking about AI in ways I found interesting. I've watched some of your videos. I've listened to some of what you said.
Andreessen used to be a big Dem donor.
The Pope, first American Pope Leo, had a very interesting address on AI, sort of talking about the possibility and the peril of it, and comparing it to the threat of a biblical Tower of Babel. How do you think about that interest as it sort of lingers and over this campaign?
What worries me about AI is the way that people take it as authoritative. That's what worries me about AI. I think if you use AI like the same way you used a Google search, well, okay, maybe not you, but the way that I used to use it, like which is you understand that the results you're getting are biased, but people think that it's authoritative, and they don't understand that it is it's just an advanced chat bot that has a lot of data to pull from. But you could torture that fucking thing to say anything. And it's and the thing is, like, it doesn't know how to properly weight material. There's so many problems with it. But there's also, like, I've said it before, it's like getting a intern who just graduated college or is like a junior in college. Now, maybe in certain applications it's a lot more useful, like programming, but I don't program, so I don't have experience with that. I just know as far as like social science, history, politics, my experience looking at AI has not been good. But maybe I need to use it more. I don't know. I just don't use it. I don't pay for it. I think I sometimes use the Google search AI. Sometimes the Google search AI is better at finding the link than the actual search. So, because I'll be like, I'll know what I'm wanting to find, and you can put like a more natural English sentence into the AI search, and then I try to find the source and click to the source and not use the AI output, because the AI output is not reliable. All according to plan. Exactly. And the thing is, like, I don't know, man. Like, my perspective on AI is I'm not a Taylor Lorenz. Taylor Lorenz is a huge AI booster, right? I'm more of like the Chinese Communist Party, which is like AI is just a kind of a technology. Maybe it has potential, maybe it doesn't. You know, maybe we can use it in these specific ways as long as it benefits society as a whole. AI is bad. The hallucination problem cannot be corrected. It can literally ever be relied upon for accuracy. It's a technological dead end. I don't know about that, man. Like, as much as I just don't like speaking that authoritatively about something that I don't have deep knowledge on. I think it's neat sometimes, but I don't think it's like, I haven't seen it. Maybe I'm just not using it properly, or I haven't spent enough time on it, which could be a mistake. You know what I'm thinking about with AI? There was this old podcast called Econ Talk. You guys know what I'm talking about? Have you guys ever heard of Econ Talk? It is a really nerdy podcast from like right-wing economists. Although I would say that they were heterodox and that they would bring on people that disagreed with them. Let me see if I can find it. Econ Talk podcast. Yeah, the Econ Lib. Like there's some right-wing economists. Russ Roberts, yeah, he's a super Zionist. Holy shit, right-wing guy. He had an episode on. I heard it years and years ago before I realized that this guy's a mega Zionist. I'm sorry, it makes sense. I mean, he's a far-right economist. Mick, AI is coming for your second job podcasting. Spotify receives intense backlash after launching AI-generated personal podcast. Speaking of that, chat. The newest episode of the Reaction Podcast. I forgot to promote it. Okay. I don't know why the Reaction there we go. The Reaction Podcast. We have our newest episode with Bad Hasbara's Matt Lieb, where we talking about Zionist creators. And ladies and gentlemen, this one is a lot of fun. We have Matt on. So instead of listening to Spotify's AI podcast, go listen. And there's some video this time. Me and Matt. Pretty fun episode. Nothing made me realize how fucked our country is that doing my master's degree in public policy analysis, our only framework to even evaluate policies from neoclassical economics. Oh no. Why is the episode short? Because it's a premium episode. You have to join the fucking Patreon. So we have premium episodes and we have free episodes. So we can support the editor. When's the Bill Maher episode? Oh, we do need to do a Bill Maher episode for sure. So go check that out. All right, I'm joining it now. Anybody, if you should go check out the Reaction Podcast, we already have instead of reaction. We already have 11 episodes. Don't worry, we're gonna have an Ethan Klein episode. We're gonna have we're gonna have all your favorite content creators. We've already had Hassan Piker on Asmongold. We had Liv Agar on Clavicular. We had Sam Cedar on Tim Pool. Now we have Matt Lieb on a whole bunch. We have a little bit of Ethan Klein. We have a little bit of Ben Shapiro. We have a little bit of Valuetainment. Who am I getting on Klein? Somebody he's not. Whenever somebody wins their lawsuit. Can I do Gamer Gators LMAO? Maybe, Alyssa. That's kind of a good idea. We're gonna do Steven Crowder for sure. We need to do a Patrick Bet David. We need to do a whole bunch more. AI will have us paying for $40 for cases of bottled water because the drinking water is toxic brown sludge. I mean, Uber's COO has said it's getting harder to justify its AI costs because there's no way to show a link between AI spend and any meaningful increase in useful features. That's the first time I've seen a company say that directly. That link is not there yet, right? He said, I think maybe implicitly there's more that is getting shipped. But it's very hard to draw a line between one of those stats and say, okay, now we're actually producing 25% more useful consumer features. He said that the trade-off costs from AI are harder to justify because he can't draw a direct link. Earlier this month, CEO Dara Horanskachki said in an earnings call that Uber was slowing hiring due to counter its investments in AI. He realized higher token usage did not translate into proportional increase in useful consumer features. But yeah, but if you don't do AI, Uber stock will go down. You'll be punished by the stock market. You know what I mean? Like if you don't use AI, then the stock market will say you're not going to be a useful company in the future. It's all bought into the AI hype. I don't know what it would take to pop the AI bubble right now. Right? Micron just went up 20% today. It just went up $150 nominal. If you had bought a call on Micron, you literally made millions this morning.
Here for our opening exchange, Gil.
Like, that's crazy. Meanwhile, American oil is cheaper, but European oil is back to $100 a barrel after the Iran war. Guys, it got to 110, and then they said there's going to be a treaty. Guys, do you think there's going to be a treaty? Guys, what do you think? Are we going to have the ping pong again? Or is this time going to be the real time they do the treaty? What do you think? Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. What do you guys think? You think this is this time they're really close? Guys, what do you think of the SpaceX IPO? Did you see did the Starship finally do like an orbit? Like, did it actually get into orbit, or did it fail? 4 Congress members are up on their Micron stock. 2 made more than their salaries. Was that from yesterday? Because they just made another. They just made a lot more today. John Fetterman, Gilbert Cisneros. John Fetterman made a lot of money today from this. Jesus Christ. I didn't need to see that, chat.
I think it's a huge issue. I think every American should be thinking, what does it mean when the very wealthiest people in this country, Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Ellison, and others, are spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to develop and implement AI and robotics? What does it mean when Jeff Bezos is putting together a $100 billion fund to, quote unquote, automate factories? What it means is that tens of millions of jobs in the next decade will likely be disappearing. And what happens to the working class of this country then? What it also means is that we have to worry about our politics, putting stuff on television where people, or on social media, people will not know the difference between what's true and what is made up and false. We got to worry about the existential threat, Chris, because scientists tell us that as AI becomes smarter than human beings, it can become independent of human control with potentially catastrophic results. It is a huge issue. And the billionaires in big tech say, hey, we don't want any regulation. And Trump says, we don't want any regulation. Let us do whatever we want. To hell with what happens. Well, I think the American people disagree. It's an issue of great importance in this campaign.
In fact, final little note is that last week they're going to put out their first ever regulation on it, which is going to be voluntary. And the president's number one AI man, David Sachs, called him at the last minute because industry didn't want it, and they canceled it. Lo and behold, so that did not get issued.
Musk did as well.
Yes. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner here on this Memorial Day, and they will be doing that rally later today. I appreciate you gentlemen making time for us on this day.
Here's a good video about how they changed the rules for SpaceX IPO. Oh, God. All right. Let's watch this, chat.
Elon Musk is preparing the largest initial public offering in human history. At a $1.75 trillion target valuation, SpaceX would be worth more than every American defense contractor combined. Worth more than the market caps of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, Nike, and Starbucks all put together. And worth more than the top 10 companies on the London Stock Exchange combined. So if you're wondering who the fuck is buying SpaceX, a company losing $5 billion per year at the largest IPO valuation in history, well, the answer is you. Because within a few weeks, your retirement account is going to be one of the biggest buyers of SpaceX stock, whether you like it or not. And that's because NASDAQ quietly introduced a brand new rule designed specifically to make that happen. But before we get to the rule, you need to understand why this all matters. Because the only way a nearly $2 trillion valuation makes any sense is if SpaceX is actually the company the public believes it to be. But it's not. If you ask 10 people on the street what SpaceX sells, most will say rockets. Some will say Mars stuff, but both are wrong. SpaceX isn't just a rocket company. It's actually 3 businesses stacked on top of each other. And the rocket business
is this an AI video? Like, is this an actual AI video? Because he talks in a very AI robotic tone.
Isn't even the most important one. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with this company. And trust me, it gets pretty ugly. So let's start there. It's the part of SpaceX that gets the most
let's start there. Like, that's not how a person talks.
Attention and creates the least value. XAI is mostly known for owning the social media platform, Twitter. Sorry, I mean the social media platform X. Anyways, it's also the AI lab.
Is there another video that we could watch, maybe with a person in it? Because I know the point, which is like, SpaceX has the satellite company, it has the XAI company, and it has what else are they doing? I mean, honestly, the fact that NASDAQ is changing their rules for SpaceX is fucking insane. It's actually a sign of major corruption.
When a company decides to go public, they're required by the Securities and Exchange Commission to file an S-1 prospectus. Historically, these are some of the driest documents ever committed to paper. They're written by corporate lawyers for other corporate lawyers to ensure that no one anywhere is ever accidentally entertained. But 2 days ago, SpaceX filed its paperwork to go public, and reading through it, it became immediately clear that this was not going to be your typical legal disclosure. For a start, it opened with 14 pages of photographs of rockets and satellites, which reminded me of Adam Newman's ill-fated WeWork prospectus, which famously opened with the line, "We dedicate this to the energy of we, greater than any one of us, but inside each of us." That document was later described as one of the worst IPO filings in Wall Street history. The SpaceX prospectus is similarly unconventional, though I will say the rockets are more photogenic than the WeWork community photographs were. The document is also filled with phrases that I'm fairly confident have never appeared in an SEC filing before. Under the business strategy section, right alongside standard disclosures about lease agreements and accounting standards, management explains that their primary objective is to extend the light of consciousness to the stars, a phrase that appears 10 separate times in the filing, which suggests that it wasn't a typo. Investors are also warned that we do not want humans to have the same fate as dinosaurs, which is a fair point, I suppose.
No, it's not a fair point. It's a dumb as fuck point. It's an idiotic point. It's a stupid point. It's a it's a 12-year-old's point. I know he's being sarcastic, chat, but I'm saying, like, the IPO is written like a 12-year-old. The IPO is written by like that's what I'm reacting to. Like, the guy who wrote the IPO is writing like they're 12.
Kind of sentence that gets you excited about what the risk disclosure section will look like. The document then goes on to outline a string of future business lines that read like science fiction. They include long-haul point-to-point terrestrial travel, which I think means traveling around the Earth in rockets rather than in airplanes, in-orbit manufacturing, yes, in orbit, passenger and cargo transportation to the Moon and Mars, manufacturing and energy production on the Moon and Mars, and asteroid mining. Because why mine for resources on Earth when you can chase down an asteroid in the hope that you'll find useful minerals on it? The acronym AI appears over 200 times in the document. The word consciousness appears 10 times. The word profit appears somewhat less frequently than either of those. What we're looking at is quite possibly the most extraordinary document in the history of American securities regulation. And today we're going to go through it because every single thing I'm about to tell you, no matter how absurd it sounds, comes directly from the filing. If you've been following SpaceX for the last 2 decades, you probably think of it as a rocket company. In recent years, with the rapid expansion of Starlink, you might have updated that to a satellite internet company. But if you read the IPO prospectus, you're in for a surprise. SpaceX is now apparently an AI company. According to the document, 93% of the company's total addressable market is attributed to AI. And based on the capital expenditure breakdown, roughly 60% of all spending is now going into artificial intelligence infrastructure. The prospectus breaks down the business into 3 segments: space, connectivity, and AI. In the first quarter of 2026, the space division, the part that actually builds and launches rockets, lost $662 million. The connectivity division, which is Starlink, turned a $1.1 billion profit. The AI division lost $2.5 billion in just the last 3 months. The only division that makes money is the satellite internet business. Everything else loses money. When Musk says that this is an AI company, what he means is that the one business that actually works is subsidizing a money-losing AI venture, while he tries to convince public market investors that the money-losing AI venture is the entire reason the company's worth $1.75 trillion. If we look past the talk of extending consciousness to the stars and focus purely on the income statement, the financial reality of SpaceX is bracing. Before we dig into
if they value it at 1.6 trillion, who cares if it loses 5 billion, right? I mean, it's got so much financial, like, that's 200 years of losses. Who gives a fuck? If it's, 300 years of losses. Like, who gives a shit? Right? If you value it at 1.6 trillion, well, then it can lose billions every year. It doesn't fucking matter. It's a rug pull. If we willingly give Elon Musk our money for this shithole company, we almost, like, what is there even to say? Also, what's he gonna rug pull to? He's gonna rug pull to where? What would happen if Elon Musk, hypothetically, what would happen if Elon Musk died? Okay, never mind died, because I don't want people to think I'm calling for him to be killed or anything, 'cause that's ridiculous. I'm not. Imagine Elon Musk, a time traveler showed up and said, Elon, I want to show you the universe. And Elon hopped into the time machine and just disappeared. It was gone for good, never to return. Okay. And now he's peacefully traveling in other galaxies. What would happen to all these companies? Like, is there any argument that they're actually good? Is there any argument that any of these companies actually make financial sense? And I'm including Tesla in here. All Elon Musk has done since he got into, like, he's just been a government teat sucker his entire fucking life. And of course he's the richest man in the country, because that's how you get rich. You don't get rich by inventing shit. To get really rich, you have to suck off the government teat. Jaeger Larson, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. Chat, I just realized something. We're 4.5 hours into the stream and I never shilled. Apparently Zoran was on the majority report there for a minute. That's pretty cool. No one told me. Nobody told me. I was yelling at you guys because you don't understand numbers about Medicare for all and getting mad. Yes, we did? Oh, well, shit. That's pretty fucking sweet. Tesla is the only one that is a vaguely viable company, but it's surviving off government subsidies. It's only viable because they don't have to compete against Chinese company. Mike, did we actually talk about FD Signifier, bad at Panada? Oh yeah, I forgot. I keep forgetting. The only value, and it's limited severely by its negatives, is Starlink connecting rural internet users with previously unheard of speeds. We should be building infrastructure to them, though, like electrification. I mean, it's shitty, though, and you're polluting the fucking space. Near-Earth orbit being full of, like, garbage satellites. Are they actually making money from that? Like, are they actually making money from that? Like, does it actually make money? I guess it does, because they could just pollute the commons of near-Earth orbit for free, right? Like, they could take up all that real estate for free. The moment they actually have to, you know, at the moment we actually, like, say, hey, near Earth orbit is, like, limited and there's only so many satellites that can fly, so therefore they have value, that shit goes to zero.
Let me tell you about this week's video sponsor, Saily. If you travel at all, you'll know the dread of landing somewhere new and watching your phone bill explode with roaming charges before you've even grabbed your bag. Saily 25, the company generated $18.7 billion in revenue. Now, $18.7 billion is a lot of money. But at a proposed valuation of $1.75 trillion, SpaceX is asking investors to value it at almost 100 times its revenue. If SpaceX were dropped into the S&P 500 today, it would be the 7th largest company in the index by market cap. But if you ranked it by actual revenue, it wouldn't even meet 200th. It would be down near Kellogg's, the maker of Fruit Loops breakfast cereal. You get the point. Unlike Kellogg's, SpaceX is not profitable. Space exploration is just a tougher business than breakfast. Last year, SpaceX posted a net loss of $4.94 billion. What makes this number remarkable is that Starlink actually generated $4.4 billion in operating profit. That means the rest of the business ate up more than $9 billion in a single year. Since its founding, SpaceX has accumulated over $37 billion in losses, more than any other company that has ever gone public in history. And there are no signs of the cash burn slowing down. Capital expenditure reached 20.7.
It's so crazy how our entire economy is just hype. It's crazy how our entire economy is just hype. It's hype around Elon Musk from Reddit. There is no fucking profitability or material improvement. We are now in a pure financial blizzard of bullshit.
$7 billion last year, quintupling from 2023, driven by Starlink expansion, Starship development, and AI infrastructure spending. To fund all of this, the company is carrying $29 billion in debt, including a $20 billion bridge loan taken out in March 2026, 8 weeks ago. So when investors hand over $75 billion in this IPO, a meaningful portion of it may not be going to orbital data centers or a Mars colony. It goes straight back to the banks who lent SpaceX money 8 weeks ago. Now, to be fair, the company is growing. Revenue is up somewhere between 33 and 43% annually.
Oni Spumoni edited FT Signifier's response to Bad Panada the Noah situation. Something to watch off stream or another day. Oh, hell yeah. Okay, it dropped. Okay. I debated the worst white leftist in the world. True. I don't even think he's a leftist. I wouldn't even consider Bad Panada a left-winger. He's said it as much before. He's just a grifter. You know, I'm going to be the only person that defends the term left wing or leftist in the entire country, and I don't care. Everyone else trashes, every time you say white leftist and make it, it's like saying white woman, right? Like, you're not really attacking the white part. You're attacking the leftist part. You're not really attacking whiteness when you attack white women. You're attacking the woman part. And you're giving yourself permission to do it by throwing in the a white thing. You're using it as a shield for something that's probably not the way to do it. And I'm not saying white leftists don't have blind spots, okay? I'm not saying that we're all perfect anti-racists and blah, 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 blah. I just don't think it's useful. You know, you're throwing shit on the noun that you're modifying with white. Why a grifter? Because he doesn't actually care about politics. Okay, so I call people that are grifters who hang around politics but don't try to affect it, who make content to make money off of politics but don't actually try to take the community or the money or the space they have and affect politics, right? Like, actually get people elected and or organize a group or anything like that. If you're just and the reason why he's a grifter is because he hangs around the electoral politics space, but he doesn't actually participate or even counter participate. He just kind of hangs around what's popular in the algorithm, because elections are what people look for in politics, because that's the way that politics gets effectuated in our society, right? We elect people and they have policies that go from there. The government is made up of people who are elected to the government, and those elected people pick the policies of the government, and then the government carries out those policies in the world. And we are all affected by that. So that's grifting to me. All right, let's finish the SpaceX thing because I like that video. It was actually a good video. I was enjoying it.
Which is genuinely
We might not finish it today.
But that growth is coming entirely from Starlink, not the AI.
He does participate. He advocates that people don't vote for left-wing candidate. Yeah, well, he basically advocates for apathy. He advocates for what's called abstentionism. Abstentionism is where a group of people knowingly abstain from exercising their political power in an effort to discredit the underlying election. I want to tell you that the most ineffective strategy, I've never seen it work, and maybe you guys can give me an example of it working, is abstentionism. Has there ever been a time where abstentionism has worked? Literally, I would like to learn. That would be a cool fact. Bro, you give me a new word every day. You know what? That's pretty cool of you to admit. Are you sure you don't want to disagree with me about abstentionism being a word? Do you want to triple down on abstentionism not being a real word? Was the uncommitted movement abstentionism? No, they voted for the uncommitted movement. They were participating, and they were literally showing 1/4 of the voters will not vote for you because of the genocide. They were saying you are a bad person, and we are showing you that. But just going, I'm never voting at all, doesn't work. And by the way, did abstentionism work to make things better in the presidential election? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to vote for a lesser evil, but they made it impossible. Like, if people literally reject you and your positions, then you're not a part of their coalition. So why would you vote for them? That's crazy.
Business. And even that growth comes with a caveat. Starlink's average revenue per user has fallen by around 18% since 2023 as the company's discount.
You mean I voted for an anti-genocide candidate? Me too. Irish MPs don't take their seats in Westminster. Can I say that I hate that? Can I just say that I hate that? Can I say that I don't like that? Like, I'm sorry. Like, can I tell you that the Sinn Féin, like, not taking their seats? Can I just say I hate that? Like, I get it. Like, I get what they're doing. But, like, wouldn't it be better if they went in there and voted for good shit and, like, made themselves like, hey, we'll vote for you if you give us a referendum or if you give us more autonomy or blah, blah, blah. We'll join your coalition in exchange for X, Y, and Z thing. Like, I haven't seen the decolonization of Northern Ireland. I don't know. I guess I just, I get why that happens. I'm not condemning them because that's a national liberation situation. But even then, I don't agree with it. I think it sucks, personally. They didn't abstain, though. They formed their own Congress. They weren't lounging at home. I mean, yeah, I get it, but they were kind of lounging at home. BE has been having a racist crash out. Goyim is a slur against non-Jews. Israelis say it as they kill Palestinians. This is what happens when you try to fight. This is what happens to people when they get Hassan derangement syndrome. When somebody gets Hassan derangement syndrome, within like 3 months, they're saying slurs. They literally, like, because they try to defeat Hassan, they get owned. And then their ego defense goes insane. Another case of ego defense making people stupid. Yeah, I know. God, what a fucking dipshit, dude. A white man who moved to Argentina to yell slurs at black people. I can think of a few other people that have made that same exact path.
This unique looking figure to my right on the screen is Bad Empanada. Bad Empanada is a C-tier, BreadTube online left creator on YouTube. Maybe he's B-tier now. How many subscribers does he have? He's got 208 subscribers. I think that's good enough to get you to B-tier. He is technically a video essayist, but if you look at his channel, as you can see, there's a lot of other people's faces on his thumbnails. Like, it's not the typical video essayist channel. At a certain point, he pivoted very hard into respond.
This is drama slop. Like, that's his channel is drama slop. Like, that's what it is. And a lot of people do drama slop. There's people like on the street, like, listen, I engage in some quote drama, but I always do it when it's about something substantive, right? Like, I will, for example, I made fun of ContraPoints. One of my most successful videos, if you go to my channel, it's me making fun of ContraPoints, right? I have why China is right about the kill line. They did gun control in Australia and it worked. And debunking ContraPoint's disgraceful statement, right? If you look, only one of these is drama. I mean, 2 of these are drama slop. 4 of them are substantive, So, like, you see what works? Other people, like people's faces. That stuff works. But this video, my channel is like about not that. But it works really well for growth if every single one of your videos is drama slop.
To other people's stuff, because the fact of the matter is he learned pretty early, and he'll admit this, he missed this during this conversation, the things he's most interested in talking about, the things that he wanted to bring to the table to LeftTube or BreadTube were not things that the general audience was interested in. And so he could not build an audience doing that. At a certain point, he becomes, I think I described him once as the online left's attack dog.
But he's not, though. I like those kind of people. If they attack our enemies, what use is an attack dog that bites you? If you go out there and bite our enemies, then you're our attack dog. If you bite us or you bite everybody, you're feral. And we got to put you down like old Yeller. If you were, I wish we had an attack dog. In some ways, I do it, but I'm not even that guy. I wish we had that attack dog that just went after our enemies 24/7, 365. I would boost that motherfucker to the fucking skies. If there was someone out there, problem with being an attack dog is you have to actually be kind of smart too. You can't just be toxic. You have to actually be able to like navigate being a left winger, which is difficult. You guys think it's easy because you're not public left wingers, so your mistakes do not get seen and amplified. You see me and you think, oh, I can do what Mike does, but you couldn't because you would trip up very quickly. And I don't mean that to like look down on you. I'm just saying that I'm at an extremely high standard. People are constantly judging for any opportunity they can to cancel me, get me banned, take what I said out of context. Like, it is what it is, So to be an attack dog, you have to not embarrass yourself. And you have to also be vicious, and it's hard to do both.
BreadTube's id.
Are you talking about Kyle?
And that has been my opinion.
But Kyle's very smart.
Bad Empanada for a long time. Bad Empanada is a person who is capable of making useful content when he wants to, but is also capable of being an antisocial, edgelord, weirdo troglodyte that nobody should really be associating with. And that nobody should be associating with thing is important because that's something that has been said privately by a lot of people on the online left for a long time, even when we agree with them. And this is specifically something that I did say on numerous occasions to Noah Sampson. I'm not gonna share Discord messages or whatever, but there have been a few times where Noah's like, what about Bad Empanada? And I basically said, I get why there's an appreciation for Bad Empanada, but this dude is unhinged and unprincipled and undisciplined and is only going to cause problems for people the more attention he gets, because what he cares about more than anything is attention and clout. To be fair, it's not even just attention and clout, it's also being the edgiest boy. I think that's really what led in part to his conflict with Vosh and Destiny, because they all fundamentally have similar behavior, just different politics. Because I am not the first person to say this or experience this around him. He's been transphobic in the past. He's been anti-indigenous in the past. He's been racist to Mexicans in the past. So I don't even remember the context of this, to be honest. Black Red Guard, for whatever reason, got into it Bad Empanada a while ago, and then Bad Empanada, because this is just how he behaves, has become a reply guy to Black Red Guard on Twitter. Black Red Guard says something that I think is completely logical. Can we please stop trying to use anti-Semitic slurs vocally? It's not cute or funny. Bad Empanada's response is, look at this pathetic, obedient little Zog slave. He kneels before his masters and begs for scraps. I'm going to get into all the problems with this statement more when we actually.
God, what a fucking cringe lord, dude. The worst part is a lot of people associate me with this kind of behavior when I never do that. You know what I mean? Like, this is the thing that really sucks for me, is I get associated with this shit and it's not even true. You know what I mean? Like, I am probably too woke, to be fucking honest with you. I just don't put out the aura of wokeness. But you don't have anything of me doing anything like this. You boosted him at the start of his insanity. Yeah, because I thought we finally had our attack dog because he was going after the right people. But then he started to go like this. He changed. It's not that I changed. He changed. I'm exactly the same guy as I was 5 years ago. Maybe slightly more vicious towards the centrists, but I'm the exact same guy. To be fair, you called him my id. Yes, I did. And he used to make decent video essays. You get freedom in Mike's chat, not in Hassan's chat. Dissent is crushed. No, I crush dissent here as well. I crush stupid. If you're stupid, I crush you. Mike, Medicare for all would cost $200 billion a year.
Get to the debate part. But seeing this, it's like, okay, I start to recognize there is a willful desire. And this is something I've known forever, because this is, again, what debate bros have kind of always been. The desire to be edgy and to be free to behave in certain ways. Leftists of this ilk will use whatever the issue du jour is to get away with that behavior. So after noticing, I'm like, I don't know if this is like the person that people should be leaning on to have that discussion. Zog is literally a Nazi term. Zog is a term that is born from the Turner Diaries. So the term Zog means Zionist occupied government, and it literally comes from the Turner Diaries. The Turner Diaries is the neo-Nazi Bible. What you see here with Bad Empanada is him literally just using neo-Nazi terminology against a black person. Just unironically, that is what, and literally the use of that term, Zog slave, is explicitly tied to black people, as these anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories tend to imply. The reason why neo-Nazis hate the Jews is because the Jews utilize black people and other people of color to dilute the white race, prop us up into positions of power to create white genocide. This short, and I talked about this with Noah directly, this short is labeled, in quotes, Zionist is a dog whistle, in quotes. And then he titles it, FD Signifier calls Zionist a Nazi dog whistle. So there's no other thing to understand about what he's trying to say here than I specifically said, literally, because that's what quotes are used for in the English language, and he is a English speaker primarily, that I said Zionist is a Nazi dog whistle. I want you to hear what I actually said. As they've materialized for content and for clout, that has been alarming, and it's been something I personally stayed away from, in part because as Bill saw, like, there's so many people waiting in the weeds to, like, you know, label you a Zionist and a Jewish supremacist and a insert Nazi dog whistle here for just being like, this sounds weird. Y'all are sounding a little weird. But that also doesn't mean that there's not a better version of an analysis that I could be operating with, or that could be put out in the forefront, which is, I think, what I'm most hopeful to get at. So I'm barely coherent in this clip. Out of context, this clip makes no sense. But understand.
I mean, I know what it means. You're just basically saying that it's hard to, you know, you want to critique the way people communicate when talking about Palestinian liberation. You want to make sure that we have the most approachable language. You don't want to border on using bigoted or the anti-Semitic or Zionist dog whistles. But when you see other pro-Palestinian creators or communicators communicating, you don't want to, you know, be criticizing them so harshly that people are, because there's people waiting in the weeds that are bad faith that'll call you a, you know, blah, blah, blah thing. That's what he was trying to say. And he's right.
No point in this clip do you hear me say Zionist is a Nazi dog whistle. As they materialize for content and for clout. That has been alarming. It has been alarming. That has been alarming. And it's been something I personally stayed away from, in part because as Bill saw, like, there's so many people waiting in the weeds to. There's so many people waiting in the weeds. And in this situation, the irony is I'm referring to Bad Empanada. Like, you know, label you a Zionist and a Jewish supremacist and a insert Nazi dog whistle here for just being like, this sounds weird. Y'all are sounding a little weird. That's referring to this. Anybody that says to Bad Empanada and his fans, hey, I think it's weird that you all are using genuine dog whistles, terms created by neo-Nazis to spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, which he, as he shows himself, understands are not good. I think it's weird that you would do that. I think it's weird that that's happening. But you know what? I'm not even gonna jump in there with y'all, because once I start saying that, you're going to just call me a Zionist or an insert Nazi dog whistle here. The Nazi dog whistle in question is Zog slave. It's weird to me that leftists who are anti-Zionist and pro-Palestine would adopt language and terminology from neo-Nazis to employ them to be anti-Zionist and pro-Palestinian. I don't think that's useful. I don't think that's useful at all. I think that's counterproductive on multiple levels. And I also just think it's weird and disrespectful and racist.
The thing is, he doesn't care about that, right? Black Red Guard is a member of DSA. He's on the ultra left, and he's actually part of an organization that is mostly to his right, at least the way he would describe it, right? And bad empanada wants to destroy even him because he's an American. So the fact that we are the source of let me just lay this out very clearly for you, and then it's undisputable. America is the source of Israel's strength. If America distances itself from Israel, Israel will fail as a Zionist project. It will become unsustainable as a Zionist project, as an expansionist colonial project. How does America stop supporting Israel? Anti-Zionist politicians win power and vote or change policy to contain Israel. An example of this exact phenomenon occurring is American policy towards South Africa. America used to support South Africa until 1988, where we ended the policy of constructive engagement. Constructive engagement was the name given to the conciliatory foreign policy of the Reagan administration toward the apartheid regime in South Africa. The policy was in place between 1981 and 1986 when, amid mounting international criticism of the South African regime, the United States Congress overrode President Ronald Reagan's veto to pass the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act of 1986. The law imposed sanctions against South Africa and stated 5 preconditions for lifting the sanctions that would end the system of apartheid, which what the latter was under at the time. Most of the sanctions were repealed July 1991 after South Africa took steps toward meeting the preconditions of the act, the final vestiges being repealed in November 1993. So that is how we did it in South Africa. We went from constructive engagement, pro-South African policy of the Ronald Reagan administration, until Congress, it was so unpopular to be seen as pro-apartheid that Congress overrode Reagan's veto to sanction South Africa, thereby helping end apartheid. That's what I want to do to Israel. I want to do the same thing we did to South Africa to Israel. It's not complicated. That's why I'm electing anti-Zionist politicians. That is my historical path that I am seeing and I am looking at, and I'm saying, okay, we just do this again. I have not heard a single reason why this is a bad strategy to actually help Palestinians and end the genocide and end Israel's apartheid and end Israel's expansionism. I haven't heard one argument that confounds or contradicts this strategy. That's why I participate in electoral politics and support anti-Zionist politicians. What is the counter argument? All right, chat. With that, I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We will have we'll watch the rest of the. We'll actually watch this video now that we have one from FD Signifier's point of view. And like saying Zog, that was a Nazi dog whistle, and it is so rich coming from somebody like. It's just that's why we're like, hey, don't use that term because it validates neo-Nazis. Don't do that. Separate ourselves from anti-Semites. It's not complicated. And then you call a black man a Zog slave. I mean, what do you expect? He's a disgusting piece of shit. All right, everybody, stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you get there to the Reaction podcast. The newest episode is really good. Make sure you check that out. I'll see you all soon. Thank you for all the support. Solidarity forever. Free Palestine. Socialism will win.